Welcome to Log Time Podcast. We're going over what we watched during this past winter 2019 season. Another big cast, but that's because this was a good season. I'm stoked to be able to share some of it with you, so let's just jump into talking about some good shows. But yeah, Endro was a fun show. It didn't do too much that was like out of the ordinary. So like if you're not a huge fan of like cute girls doing cute things, the subversion may not be as appreciative. But I do like that it knew what it was doing and it did some clever stuff with it, and it was just fun the rest of the way for me, who likes cute girls doing cute things shows.
I can dig that.
Yeah. It is hella comfy to like put on and just laugh at it a couple of times whenever they just do some random ass bullshit. It very much reminds me of going back and playing through Kingdom Hearts 2, because these guys are dumb shits in the best of ways. They're just fucking stupid.
I got to watch the first episode and I absolutely adored it. But for whatever reason, it wasn't a series that I kept up with weekly.
That's fine.
It's probably one that I'd like to go back and watch, but it just kind of depends on what buck wild stuff is happening in this next season and what's going on the next couple months.
Yeah. Gosh.
I liked Endro. Like, I watched like the first 5 episodes, and yeah, like it's obvious that the subversion is there, and that's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, it is, in essence, the slice of life. The slice of their life.
Right, it's subverting the in another world fantasy genre by forcing it to be a slice of life rather than what it was. Mm-hmm. Which I loved immensely. So.
It almost actually feels, maybe not even just isekai in general, but maybe even more specific. Maybe it's more of a subversion of that, a bunch of those novels and shows that came out a while back about the Demon Lord. Like, there was always the hero and they fight the Demon Lord. Like, that's the goal. Maybe a subversion more of just that particular aspect of isekais.
Definitely, and I'm not going to spoil it for you all, but definitely the last 2 episodes of this series, like, I think it was very, very much, like, clued in on that. Just absolutely hitting that specific mark. And I liked that a lot. And I also liked that they were willing to make it, like, slightly more serious for, like, the final ending. And do something cool with it. So that was really nice. Yeah.
I would love to go and finish it sometime.
I also I just love stories that are totally comfortable playing within their world space and not necessarily having, like, this single focused narrative. They're like, no. Let's explore this. Let's explore the world. Let's see what this cool thing is. And they definitely dedicated several episodes later on to that, in which they're just like, yeah, they're just off in this one country doing this one thing, and it's like, oh, that's fucking cool. I like it.
Just kind of like play with me in the space we've created.
Yeah, very Mabim Bam. So I was very happy with that one. Oh, I was very comfortable with Endro. So.
I would say it was probably underrated. I didn't finish it, but like, just looking at the scores on Mal, apparently it just didn't get as much hubbub as all these other shows did. I mean, to be fair, there was a lot of shows to hubbub about. Shows. So, not surprised that it kind of like slipped beneath the cracks. But I mean, that's good that it's still, like, obviously a contender among the good shows, you know?
Yes. For me, I was just very competent in what it was doing. And in a similar, I won't say to such the amazement that Yuru Camp was, but in a similar fashion, a show that you wouldn't necessarily think would be your anime of the year, but you're like, oh no, actually, that was good, even if it is just like a slice of life. Like, it just was competent in what it was trying to do.
Yeah. And I mean, if the show's doing that, then yeah, that's all it needs to do, really.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yep. We're all about that here in the Backloggers. We appreciate shows that set out to do one thing and do it well.
We're fans of the one-trick ponies.
Congratulations.
I mean, but you know what? That's fine. It's a good pony and it's a good trick.
Yeah, I mean, you only need one pony.
Yeah.
Get off my pony's back. Pony good.
What?
Anyways, that actually reminds me. Hey, the run with the wind has to do with running. I'm bad at segues. Hey, do you want to talk about something else?
You know, I was really gonna come in with the dumb segue saying like, and pony go fast, but also boys go fast. But you know what? That's what you said is fine too. I think over the last like 23 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, no, it was more like 26 or 27 because it got delayed a couple weeks because of its weird airing schedule. I think I looked forward to nothing quite so much as I did a new episode of Run with the Wind. Man, I just... It is difficult to describe how hype and good and heartwarming and how absolutely like heart-stopping this show is. It's the only show this season... Oh, wait, no, that's a lie. It is one of two shows this season that I gave a 10 to.
Damn.
Wow.
Because, man, this show is good. I cannot express to you how fucking good Run with the Wind is. And I know I've talked briefly about it before, in that, you know, it is very much a sports show that does what it wants to do and it does it well. Mm-hmm. And largely speaking, I think that the ways in which it embodies a lot of sports genres and kind of adds on to that is why I like it so much. I don't want to have this section just be completely rehashing what I said last time, because I don't have a ton to really add to it. But the base idea of having a bunch of idiots from various different walks of life, different age groups and things of that nature that come together in order to be part of this, you know, track team, this defunct track team for a college that hasn't had a team for years, is really inspiring because they all start essentially being hoodwinked into getting into the club because they're all living in the same dormitory. And one of the dudes there, the main boy, Haiji, who's running the club, says, "Hey, if you're not in the club, you can't be in this house. Sorry." So for all sorts of different reasons, Haiji kind of manipulates everyone into joining, whether it's saying, "You can't live here otherwise," or, "Hey, if you join this, you'll be popular with girls," or, "If you come do this thing, you can put it on a resume and it'll look good for you in interviews."
You're going to see this dude in like 20 years from now, and he's like running for city mayor.
Man, like, I mean, he has such incredible charisma to him, and he is such a strong driving force throughout the show. I love him so much. I have him as my husbando on Kitsu, or I tried to anyway. Yeah. Oh man, he's so good. But the base idea here of having these completely unrelated dudes who don't know much about each other, week by week, fight and grow closer and form bonds and really have strong character arcs and push themselves to the limits, and for some of them, push them beyond the limits, to achieve something so wild and crazy is so incredibly inspiring and heartwarming. And I really find myself like every Wednesday now, like yesterday passed and I was like, "Oh, there's a new Run with the Wind," and I stopped and I was like, "Oh, there's not." Oh, and I kind of just sat there and hurt for a few minutes.
Ow.
But it's hard to really describe everything about it, just in that every single little part about the show is fantastic. It is visually beautiful. The soundtrack is perfect, down to the music, the sound design, everything else about it. Every single character has really strong development. You feel like they are clearly not the same people that we started out with. And it's just such an incredible, consistent story of showing the ways in which we follow our passions for something, and the ways that those passions can change and sometimes die out and rekindle, and the pain we put ourselves through that sometimes. I'm about to get teary-eyed over this fucking show and like the last 5 episodes.
The way that you're describing it, I legitimately have just like a big smile on my face. I'm just like, oh man, like you're getting me hyped. I want to watch this.
Well, and that's the thing, because there was a point a little after the midway of the show where something happened, and like mid-episode, I literally like jumped off the couch and just screamed and pumped my fists and ran around my living room just because like I was that deeply invested in these characters and their story and everything else that they do. And it's just, the nicest thing about it is that it's 23 episodes and it's done. Like, there's no season 2. There's no plans for anything else as far as I know. Like, there is no reason for it to. And I like a lot of sports shows because they're these very long-running shows where you can keep up with these characters' development and see the struggles they go through. But man, the pacing is so tight in this, and it does everything perfectly. There's no reason for it to go on any longer than it does. And I appreciate that so incredibly deeply. It's so goddamn good. I don't want to keep just rambling about it. Like, if I have any show to recommend anyone to watch in the last probably half a year, this would be it.
That's a pretty tall order.
I mean, I'm serious. Like, it is a show that I feel like anyone that watches it can find something in it to relate to. You can see yourself in one of these characters in some way. And even if you don't fully identify with one of them, the idea, the story, and the following of these struggles and these trials that people go through in these different circumstances is just so moving in a way, in that I haven't felt this way about a show in... I literally can't actually tell you the last time I felt this way about a show. And it's wild to me that I had this kind of reaction to it, but fuck me, it's good. This is going to be one of those shows that I'm talking about for years, I think, that I'm going to remember for a very long time.
I'm actually feeling kind of bad that we are doing this so quick in the podcast. This would have been a great finale.
Well, no, I mean, like, and I get that, but... I don't really have much to say because I've said a bit in the last cast, and me saying anything but why are you listening to this podcast, go watch this show right now, would be doing it a disservice. So I'm going to leave it at that. God, it's a good show. I'm glad we got it out of the way right now because I would have been thinking about it the entire cast. But yeah, even if you don't like sports shows, I think especially if you don't like sports shows, this is a good one to go into, just because it is so exceptionally good at what it does, and it does not have a lot of the pacing issues and weird drama that a lot of other like shonen esports shows have. It's very true to life in a lot of ways. So yeah,
never really watched a sports show before. I mean,
really?
I've watched, the closest I ever got, I guess, was like the first half of Little Busters, but that doesn't really count because the last half is completely different than the first half. But that's for another time.
Yeah.
But I guess in this similar way, like some of the things you're describing kind of line up in my head with what you're talking about. So I could kind of understand how that could resonate pretty well.
Because like it's not. I mean, a lot of it is clearly about the sport of running itself, but they tackle these ideas of like, why do we run? Why do we do what we do? Who is allowed to do this thing? There's a lot of discussion of, can you only do track and running if you are skilled at it, if you're going for Olympic times, if you're looking to be someone that is, looking to place things here, and talks a lot about like, who has the right to do this, and do we even have any right to say who gets to do it? So it's very accessible. A lot of it is about the sport, but a lot of it is so very not about the sport itself either. A lot of it is just about personal struggles.
Yeah, I was going to say, It sounds like while it's definitely about the sport, similar to like Remember the Titans, it's more of a human struggle and the human element of its series that seems to shine through to you.
Yep. I mean, it's both, really. but because oh my god, it's anyway. All right, now I'm done.
It seems like everyone that talks about Run with the Wind just absolutely fucking loves it. So
yeah,
I'm serious. Like I've hardly heard anyone talk about it, but fuck me,
it's not. Yeah, it's not many
disservice.
But
every time that I've heard somebody talk about it,
they're just like, "Oh my gosh, you got to watch this like right now."
Yeah.
Yep.
So besides Run with the Wind, what else? Because you were watching a couple other shows, right?
Oh yeah, man. I watched a fair bit this season. The other two that I have to talk about today, though, is The Promised Neverland and Boogiepop and Others. So, do you want like proto light novel existential angst stuff, or do you want kid eating?
Oh my god. Oh my god.
No, you know what? Let's get the
So I'll talk
existential
about the Promised
angst.
Neverland.
Oh, okay. We'll go straight
okay.
to the kid eating. That's fine. No.
Okay.
Cannibalism.
Let's just whatever. Let's just go.
No, you know what?
Go with
Actually,
whatever. Do it.
I'll just do a bell curve on this. I'm actually going to go to Boogiepop. So Boogiepop did weird shit this season. In actually airing, it's 18 episodes, which you would think, how the hell do they do that? And my friend, let me tell you, it's because 1 week they dropped 4 episodes at once.
That's crazy.
I feel like that's because they knew how fucking weird their show was, though, and that they're like, no, you're gonna have to see more than one episode.
Yeah, so
it's so strange.
That's about my assessment of the show. It's so strange.
I wasn't really talking about that, but yeah, from the episode I watched, I think that's an assessment.
To be honest, I can't really add much because I've still only seen the first episode. I didn't get a chance to get to the rest of it.
I mean, that's okay, but if you've seen the first episode, you've kind of seen the show. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it has its issues. Like, from what I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, so this is an adaptation of what was essentially like the light novel that started the craze of light novels, like 20-some years ago, or was at least around that time.
It was
one of the progenitors to what a lot of people apparently took heavy inspiration from for all of their light novels.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, watching this, the entire time I was watching Boogiepop and Others, I could not stop thinking, wow, holy shit, Monogatari took a lot from this. Mainly in, like, tone and style, because this is a show that is largely about ideas, a lot of dialogue, a fairly large-ish cast that intersects among one another, and then it's also about extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional beings that are doing stuff.
That shit's my jam, though.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very interesting, and it's divided up into four separate arcs, more or less. There is the first one, in which it's kind of the introductory arc. It's about 3 episodes or so. It's just called Boogiepop and Others, and it's kind of introducing us to the larger cast of the show that we're going to look at later on.
The Others.
And yes, pretty much. And so each arc has one like major antagonist that the show and our protagonists are looking to like combat in some way. The really fascinating part like about Boogiepop is just I love the idea of Boogiepop as an entity being just this weird androgynous character in like a drum major outfit with like a big old pipe hat that just appears as an automatic defense system for the world when a danger or a threat to the world appears in some way. It's a really fascinating idea.
I've heard that concept done a couple of other times, and every single time I've always been like, this is cool. I kind of like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. And for I think like the first 2 arcs, it is most solidly presented in that particular way. It's so interesting because, I mean, the first arc is more or less essentially like there is an alien life form of some kind that is hidden among us, and they are killing people around here in some mass killing spree thing. The whole show kind of revolves around each arc talking about like the evolution of man in some way, and how these different ideas and such serve to contribute to man's larger evolution as a species, or as like a conceptual thing.
Man, someone was a huge fan of 2001: Space Odyssey.
I mean, like, kinda, yeah, but it's just... It feels less like an actual concept that is accurately explored, and more like this is a cool buzzword or idea that we want to work with.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know, because it doesn't really deal a whole lot with, like, actual man's evolution or anything like that either. It's, in a lot of ways, a show that wants to be about something and wants to kind of sound smart, but it really kind of isn't. In a lot of ways,
you start
I don't
getting
really want to say that, and I don't want to like shit on Boogiepop or anything.
Like,
but
so is it like, dare I say, pretentious in that way?
Oh yes, it very much is. And to be fair, like, it has a lot of really interesting like connections and plot lines and through lines throughout it. Like the second arc, versus Imaginator, for instance, is about this dude is a therapist of kinds, and for some reason he is able to see into the hearts of people, and it is represented as a rose. So people have like roots, a bud, and leaves and something like that, and he can see how everyone is missing something from their lives. Some part of that flower is missing, and so he develops this power and is met with, again, some other weird entity life form that says, hey, but you can actually fix them. And so he's kind of on this weird deluded quest to quote unquote fix people. It doesn't always work that way, but it's just so interesting in how they flesh out so many of its characters and antagonists. From a stylistic standpoint, this show has so much to offer. It's beautifully produced. It is a joy to watch. The music, holy shit, it's one of the best OPs I've heard in ages. And it's just kind of like ambient soundtrack in and of itself throughout the show. Is so consistently good. It was kind of probably my favorite part of the show, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess it's kind of hard to talk about the show in a lot of ways because so much of it is just a discussion of ideas, and those ideas don't always like come together in a cohesive way. Yeah.
Don't always hold water.
They don't, and I mean that's fine.
It kind of...
I think... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it sounds like a bunch of short stories with the same character base is kind of what it sounds like a compilation, like the whole entire series thing.
Yeah, so from what I can tell, each of the arcs is essentially an adaptation of a different light novel in the series.
Okay.
More or less. And it definitely feels that way because each one is very much its own self-contained story that has some crossover with the other ones. Like, it's largely speaking the same cast, but some arcs don't include some of those characters at all. Some of them, they only cameo appear in them. So, it kind of just depends on which set of episodes you're watching.
The way that you're describing it, to me, and I don't mean to say this in like an incredibly negative way, but as a comparison that we were bringing up earlier to Monogatari that took a lot of inspiration from it, where Monogatari was both style and substance in a lot of ways, this one seems like it was more style and was kind of like struggling a little bit on the substance.
Well, so like I don't want to say that it doesn't have substance, because I'm sure that if you got like a big cork board and some red thread and push tacks and like Polaroids and put it all together, like you could really get a lot put together.
If we want to keep going with the Monogatari comparison, it sounds more like maybe Monogatari has a more like cohesive story with the same sort of ideas and narrative beats, but maybe Boogiepop is not exactly as organized. It sounds a lot more disjointed.
I mean, like, kind of in a way, but I think it's maybe less about that and more that it just really wants to be about something. So like if we're taking the comparison, for instance, Monogatari's like different arcs do also kind of deal with a single entity for each one. Mm-hmm. So like the Hitagi
as well
crab
as a single
like
theme that it's trying to tackle.
Yeah,
and so then they all kind of tie together.
Right, yeah, exactly. So they're very similarly structured in that way. But whereas a Monogatari's like larger sense of dialogue is talking specifically about characters and their personal feelings and flaws and ideas and such, Boogiepop is trying to tackle a lot of like very heady like worldwide themes in some way. So kind of talking about like there's the final arc is called Overdrive, the King of Distortion, where the major quote unquote antagonist is this guy that is looking to bring the quote distortions in people's hearts to light for them to tackle in some way.
This sounds like Persona now.
I mean, kind of, because like there's this one girl that is really struggling because she had a childhood friend of hers, and they had a fight, and she ran off, and then before she got a chance to apologize, her friend and her family died in a car accident, and so yeah, of course. But so there's this point where she feels like she is an awful person this whole time. Because she didn't get to say she was sorry, but the King of Distortion was like, hey, but the fact that you care this much and have been this guilty shows how kind of a person you are and things of that nature. And so I don't know, it's looking to talk about a lot of universal issues, but it does it in such a way and through such language that it is buried in it. So the basic thing is it has ideas and it sounds cool, but it doesn't always mean what I think it wants to mean.
It's kind of like whenever you're trying to say something to somebody but you're not phrasing it correctly, like the message is still getting across, but it's not quite what you want it to be, what you wanted to say.
Yeah. And I think I've come to a point where like I appreciate what it's trying to do, and I think it's very smart and very interesting and entertaining to watch. Like I say all this, but I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, I don't think that makes it bad.
I feel like an issue probably comes from translation though, because since we are working with such. Well, and that's the thing, because like I mean, so I was watching through Crunchyroll, and like there were a lot of just like basic issues with the translations themselves. Like there's one point where some character was saying like I feel this way, but it was spelled like I fell like this or something, and so
awkward.
I mean, I feel like if they don't have enough time to properly like proofread their subs, they probably didn't do as solid a job on actually making a quality translation as they had, and that's largely because of like simulcast's fault and things of that nature, where people can't fucking wait a couple days for a show to come out. And
I feel like especially with shows, if we're keeping the Monogatari comparison, especially with Monogatari, the idea of like the fact that basically the entire like there are major plot points in the story that rely upon language and the use of language. Like you have to be very particular with translations like that.
Yeah, and Boogiepop sounds like one of those shows that's got a lot of those complicated, complex kanji that are going to be very hard to translate, and translating a lot of those in a short period of time with a quality translation is just not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, that's the ultimate thing here, because like I mean, Boogiepop has some really fucking rad action scenes and set pieces and such, but 95% of this show is people standing in place and talking at each other. So
you got to make sure that your translations are real fucking solid.
But that also means
and that's the thing.
From a sub perspective, that just means there's more dialogue, which means that time frame gets even smaller.
Yeah. The amount of time that you can work on it.
Like, it's really unfortunate, because I think that this does a lot of really cool stuff, and I think it tackles a lot of really interesting concepts. But and again, like I don't have any proof of this. I can't say like I can't point to an article that says here's a time frame they had to work with and here's how this worked out. But it feels like a show that really suffered in terms of not being able to get a really like as solid and consistent a translation as we needed for it, considering it is so consistently dialogue heavy and so concept heavy.
But yeah, That's unfortunately the problem with those sorts of shows.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with the show. It's unfortunate, you know?
Yeah. Right. It's unfortunate from a contextual perspective.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, if you're looking for a bit of a brain twister and you're like, I want to watch a weird light novel adaptation, like, this is definitely for you. I would definitely recommend it if you like stuff along the lines of Monogatari, because this would definitely scratch that itch for you. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know, man. I wish it got more than it did, is all.
Now I'm wondering, because, gosh, I want to revisit Boogiepop at some point after, like, reading the light novel and seeing, like, the comparison. Because I would be very much interested in that.
I would, too, because I know they recently got licensed over here. Mm-hmm. I've seen them around store shelves and things of that nature, so I'm definitely interested to see, like, what the actual novels themselves have to say.
Yeah, I don't remember who licensed it, but I hope that they don't have the same issue that the simulcasts do, and the fact that it's just.
I mean, usually with a book, like they have that well thought out beforehand, in which they have their translators ready, and they give them months to work on something.
Well, it depends on if it's, but like the In Press, for example, has a 4 month turnaround on each novel. So I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, like I would love it if, say, like Vertical had their hands on it.
Yeah, I think Vertical could do a better job, honestly, but I don't know. I was gonna look that up. So
yeah,
seems more of something up Vertical's alley. So I don't know.
I definitely do think that I'm going to finish Boogiepop at one point, because this definitely seemed like the type of show, style-wise and just discussion-wise, that like would interest me. But
this is definitely up your alley.
But I think that I'm going to have to keep in mind that aspect of it, that it may or may not be like as well done as we wanted it to be.
Yeah, it's a little more word salad and a little less, I actually hadn't thought of X concept that way.
Yeah.
So speaking of salad,
oh no.
Do you want your kids with a garnish of flowers or what?
Christ.
How do you want to serve this?
And if you can throw in like a couple of cherry tomatoes, in fact, have that whole like apple in their mouth kind of thing, and serve them up on a dish like a pig. Yeah.
All right. Promised Neverland, please.
Have either of you watched any of this show at all?
I watched the first episode.
2 episodes, yeah.
Okay, so you both are familiar with at least the first episode. Cool.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Good. This show's a nightmare.
This show is fucking nightmare incarnate.
It is an absolute fucking nightmare, and I loved every single bit of it.
Oh, no, that's the thing, is that, like, as I was watching through the show, I was like, I can 100% guarantee to myself that if the entire show is like these first 2 episodes in just style, in the way that it's designed, in the writing for it, and like in just the way that it's striking each emotional beat that it needs to hit, I was like, holy hot shit, this is absolutely my thing, and I'm going to hate it, but in the best of ways.
Yeah. So it very much does continue that kind of tempo that the first 2 episodes set. It does slow down a little bit.
I think, but that's understandable whenever you're working with a series rather than like a short series or an OVA or like a movie.
Yeah. For context, the manga is in chapter like 100.
Oh damn!
Like early hundreds, and the show adapts up to chapter 37.
Okay.
Wow. So okay, as far as adaptations go, it sounds like a pretty slow adaptation.
Yeah, there's a lot of content for them to go forward for. But the thing about this, because I've been reading the manga since I finished the show itself, and the show definitely benefits from taking a slower pace here, just because there is so much for them to actually cover. Because just as much as this is like a holy shit, how do we survive, a lot of it is like this kind of like mystery drama kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
Because like they have to slowly piece together, okay, how do we escape from the kid farm? How do we get around, this mother figure that we've trusted for so long that is super seemingly not on our side now, and a bunch of other things. So taking the slower pace really, really works in its favor. man, it's such a wild ride, and I don't want to say, like, are you all gonna watch this at all?
Yes.
I mean, obviously.
Right. Okay.
It's a big
I
hit.
don't want to. I don't want to talk too much spoiler wise. Then, and I'll try to keep it to a minimum. But this show does so much with its cast of characters, and it fleshes them out in a lot of genuinely fascinating ways. So, I mean, from first episode, we all already know, the mother of the farm, Isabel, is a lot more than she seems.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the show does such an interesting job at complicating her character and like really making her a genuinely like interesting, sympathetic figure in some ways, depending on how you view and interpret events and see how she actually handles these kinds of issues that
I really appreciate
presents.
Yeah, I really appreciate a show that deep dives the villain.
Oh, fuck me, because yeah, boy does it.
Yeah.
And I guess without spoilers, like, how is this going to turn into like some kind of like gray morality thing, or is this just? I
wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't really say that. I would say that it's more an exploration of how do people handle situations that they are thrust into that they might not personally agree with.
Okay.
In ways. But even that's not the right way to put it. Anyway, I can't talk about it because some of the ways that the show handles it is so fucking fascinating and like is a genuine, like, there are a few points where an episode ended with a twist and I was just sitting there like, what'd you say? What? So it's highly worth watching. Okay. Going in as blind as you possibly can.
Yes. Like, even I can tell everyone that as far as like the first 2 episodes, go in as blind as you possibly can to the series.
Well, I haven't heard anything about it, so maybe that's like a unwritten rule or something.
Yeah, it pretty solidly is, but fuck me, it's good. I'm not gonna say that it's without issues. Just from like a character standpoint, there's one other adult that is going to be introduced in the show.
I don't know
that you all are going to work with.
So I remember maybe I saw 3 episodes, but I remember that there was another woman who is interestingly a black character that gets introduced.
Yeah. There's some weird issues with that in the transition from manga to anime. That they add that makes her character a little weird and a little more seemingly psychotic than she actually is in the manga. Real weird
really?
Choice. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
I was just nervous about like representation and like how they were treating a black character, but I find it interesting that like it's not that, it's the issue is that for some reason they like weirdly translated the character.
Yeah, the adaptation is very different from how she is in the manga itself. Like, there's still this kind of sense of a little bit of manic character in her character in the manga, but there's some specific choices that the anime makes that are a little odd.
You think that has to do with like the fact that it's just animated or directed weirdly?
Well, no, like there's specific things that, so like in the anime,
or do they actually like rewrite the plot and character itself?
So in the anime, she has this doll that she carries around.
Okay.
It's like a baby doll, and from what I've read of the manga so far, in the points in which it would have shown her reflecting on things and like talking to this doll, that's never showed up so far. I'm not fully caught up in the manga. To be fair, it might appear, but I don't think it does, and I've heard a couple others talk about this. So it's kind of a weird choice.
Yeah,
also,
I don't know much about the situation, but I do know that there's been a couple of people that have written articles that were specifically titled "The Issue with This Character." So
yeah, that, and also the one of the only black children in the house is named Jemima.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's just a little odd, but because I only think of like traditionally like Aunt Jemima in that sense, and I know that's how a lot of people have interpreted that. So that's like a little.
I don't know if I know the reference actually.
Like the syrup.
Yeah, like the black nanny syrup thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just that sounds like more of just an unfortunate thing.
Yeah, and like again,
you do have to be careful though with a lot of things that come from like Japan and Korea and different things like that, just because their discussions about race are a little different than ours.
Right, and so that's the thing. Like it's minor, but it's still kind of like Yeah. But anyway, it's not enough to like cast a whole dispersion on the show, because like there's not much about that younger character anyways. It's just the fact that like I heard her name in like one of the later episodes, and I was like, what? But anyway, that aside, it is such a fantastic, fascinating, like really tense show. It's another one of those that like every week I was like, oh yeah, it time for Promised Neverland. Let's do this. So yeah, if you haven't watched it, I don't know what your excuse is.
I'm sorry, did you just say Mom's Neverland?
Promised Neverland.
I heard Mom's Neverland, and I was like,
no.
I was thinking, is this some kind of weird fan nickname now?
No. We don't do hentai on this.
Well, that's not what I was thinking. I was just thinking of like, I don't know. It just sounded.
Are you sitting here and telling me that an anime titled Mom's Neverland is not going to be some?
Yes.
Oh, you sweet innocent boy.
He's not innocent. What are you talking? No, Can we just move on?
Yeah.
Promised Neverland is really good. If you haven't watched it, I don't know what to tell you other than you should really watch this show. It's so good. Yeah, just do it.
It's got the Nike seal of approval too.
If the title led you to expect something to do with Peter Pan, you're in for a nasty surprise.
Although, I don't know, the I haven't gone that far, but the title definitely reminds me of this idea that I think they're trying to pull a little bit from like old fables, in like these kids are wishing for this like Promised Neverland. They thought that they were growing up in this like perfect world, and there's also the metaphor of like when they get older they die, because in Neverland children don't age. So I think that it's definitely pulling a little bit from like Peter Pan, at least in that way.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. I absolutely need to watch that. I just did not have time, unfortunately. But oh my gosh, I wanted to watch more of that, and I also didn't, because it just gets so dark.
Yeah, it takes a lot of really wild twists with a lot of characters you might not necessarily expect it from. So just be prepared for. It's not June Maeda's wild ride, but be prepared for a wild ride.
I love wild rides. They're actually my favorite genre of anime.
I know they are. So, did you watch any wild rides this season?
Oh, well, how wild do you want your ride to be? I guess is the question.
Let's go full hog.
You want to go full hog? Yeah. Oh, jeez. Okay, so let me get that. So I guess let's just jump right into it, because otherwise it's just going to loom over me for a little bit. Let's talk about
Franco.
What?
Never mind. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Kyle just probably made another reference that I didn't get. Let's talk about.
How do you not know Phil DeFranco?
I just didn't hear what he said.
Anyways,
move on.
Anyway. Domestic Kanojo. Let's start there.
Oh yeah, the show I know hardly anything about.
I know literally nothing about this except for that I read the synopsis and I was like, that ain't me. And then apparently, like later on, you, Matt, along with a couple of other people that I genuinely trust their opinion, were just like, actually, that's a good show.
So you honestly, if you read the synopsis, right, it's not exactly a show that you're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to like it. It's kind of one of those shows that you...
Listen, I've been burned too many times. I had hope for Aramanga Sensei, and it was not true. It did
okay,
not
but this is no Aramanga Sensei, honestly. Aramanga Sensei ruined itself. We already talked about that.
That's true.
But I don't want to talk about it again.
Yeah, let's not go there. So domestic kanajo is or domestic girlfriend, or it's got a whole bunch of names, but that's most common. It's a pretty wild ride. I would say that in terms of, like, if you want to get a concept of what the show is, like, it's probably along the lines of, like, Scum's Wish adjacent.
Ooh.
It's a little bit more like that than maybe maybe something.
That is right up my alley. All right.
Yeah. So
do tell.
It's kind of got a little bit of a similar concept. The synopsis pretty much explains, like, the first episode. But basically, there's a guy, and he has, like, a relationship with a girl, and it doesn't show it, but there's a lot of sexual moments in this show that are not shown, but are definitely, like...
It is tagged as an ecchi, so...
Yeah, like, it's kind of similar to the first episode of Scum's Wish, if you think about it like that. Like, it's that.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
it's not like sex for the purpose of, like, ooh, look at this. It's more of like, no, this actually has to do with our story, so we have to show it. Kind of thing.
Yeah, like a weird exploration of character through sexuality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that throughout the show. But it has to do a lot less about, like... It has to do a lot more about the what is it? You might look at the synopsis and you might think that the show is more about the concept of, like, dealing with relationships with your sisters, and like you might think it's maybe like taking a more, like, gross incestual approach, but it really doesn't. Like I know Kyle is probably gonna, like, grill me in about 10 seconds.
No, but it's just like I'm getting flashbacks to Ramo, but I know that you're like, no, it's not that. It's not that. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's not like that. It is. I wouldn't even put it in the same category. It is dealing with these, like, real issues, like I would say that if you took that element out, because it doesn't come up, like, a whole lot. The story is not based around, like, a whole bunch of shenanigans where they're like, oh, but we're sisters, but we're not blood related. There's not a whole lot of that nonsense in the story. Like, there's, like, maybe 2 instances I can think of that maybe they say something like that. But
okay, it's kind of one of those things where, like, on a whim, before they were related, this is a thing that occurred, but then once they suddenly find themselves in a step-sibling situation, it's like, it's awkward, it's weird, but we're not going to address it because that's not necessarily important to, like, what's going on now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little
so
bit more
it's just
like
kind of a it's a weird tease to get you into it.
It is, but it isn't.
Maybe
like
maybe not the word tease.
But
okay, yeah.
I mean, so there's it's one of those shows. Have you guys ever, like, I don't want to compare it like this, but I would like to say that the show kind of develops itself to be, it's obviously a drama, right? Like,
right.
Like, we obviously, like, we've got that clarified. I would say that, well, one of the first conflicts that comes up in the show is actually that the main character, his older stepsister now, that he's always liked, because he learns that she's having an affair with another dude, right? Like,
very Scum's Wish.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that, but also the guy she's having an affair with is also having an affair, so that was like...
very Scum's Wish. Keep going.
Yeah, like, and basically, he... Like, there's just that kind of drama that's kind of going on. Yeah. And, I mean, I won't, like, spoil it too much, but there's that kind of drama is the kind of thing you should be expecting from this show. Like, it's not all about, like... it's all about the main character trying to convey his feelings towards people, or towards this older stepsister, before this became like the stepsister thing. And then there's like another, like his younger stepsister. This sounds like so weird to describe because every time I say the word stepsister, it makes it sound skeevier than it really is if you watch the show.
I trust you, man. I trust you.
It's just, well, she like starts developing feelings for him because of the thing that they did before they even became step siblings.
Got it.
So there's a lot of discussions about just like feelings and emotions in general. Like, you're now kind of like, for the main character at least, I feel like there's a lot of discussion about like you have these feelings for people, and I guess with the older sister as well. There's a lot of discussion just about like we have these feelings that maybe we want to express, but we feel like we can't express because of certain societal like things, but we that like I don't know, like it seems like there's a lot of that. Like it's all about feelings. Like I don't want to say this whole thing's a big soap opera, but
what it sounds like to me is that it's taking a lot of inspiration of like we're going to talk about these slightly taboo subjects, and in doing so, we're able to express some of the difficulties of people like growing up and having these issues with their emotions.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, that comes through a lot with some of the other characters in the show, too, that aren't his stepsisters. Because there's a couple of other, like, characters that are introduced that sort of, like, want to engage in a relationship, some kind of emotional relationship with him. And it seems that there's a lot of this, like, there's obviously, like, a lot of boundaries, like, and like just issues that you run into, like
right, yeah,
like it's not like a clear. It's kind of going into a thing where basically relationships just aren't this clear cut thing where they magically happen, and
right,
like
yeah,
it's not. It's not. They're not easy, and like sometimes like there's a lot of issues and other things that you're gonna have to deal with.
I think
like right.
As at least from my own personal experience in dating relationships, I think that a series that is not afraid to like muddy the waters and even talk about how those waters are getting muddied and why, I think that very much speaks to me, as just a discussion of like, you know, what are the boundaries here? What makes a girlfriend compared to a friend? What makes you like, you know, dating compared to like in an intimate relationship, or like what just makes like a whole bunch of other stuff. Like there's we always strike these hard limits between things, and it sounds like that what you're saying is this show kind of like directly attacks those kind of limits and being like, well, but it's more gray than what you think.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the big core aspects of this show is that these limits or these boundaries or these expectations, they're not clear cut like you think they are. There's a whole bunch of gray area.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings me kind of back around to the sister thing, because the one time that this is actually addressed in the show is the main character, he declares his feelings towards the older sister eventually. That actually happens. There's a confession scene, and they actually there's this whole discussion that takes place about, like, you know, what will society think of us? Like, not like in an Aramo way, like we're not going to run off together, but basically the older sister says, if you do this is basically double suicide. We'll have to, and there's this whole
from a societal perspective.
Yeah. Like, this is, you do understand, like, this, if you want to go through with this, like, this is what's going to happen. Like,
okay.
It's not like a spur of the moment thing like a Rainbow was. Like, yeah, let's just do it, and then, or
it'll be fine. It'll work out. And then
it'll
even
work
the
out.
author
Like, yeah.
had issues trying to get it to work out.
Yeah. So it's definitely a lot more grounded, I would say. I'd say it's, despite its kind of ridiculous premise, it's a very grounded show. At least it tries to set out to do something with the idea of all of this, and yeah, the whole thing turns into a huge mess. Like the show is just about as messy and drama filled as you would expect, honestly.
Yeah, but
I'm seeing a lot of people compare this as like Scum's Wish 2. Just looking through some reviews and such.
Yeah, I remember on Twitter there was somebody that had mentioned that as well, and I'm like, that's right up my alley, because Scum's Wish was such my jam. I
just finished rewatching it, honestly.
Oh, really? I usually try to stay away from that, because like whenever things get really, really drama heavy, it starts to weigh on me, and I'm like, but I don't want to do this. But then like, for some reason, it was just the way that it was balanced and paced in Scum's Wish was like genuinely just so good, and like had me glued to the TV, like hugging a pillow. So if this is very much a very similar vein to that, that's right up my alley.
Yeah, and I would say it is. Like, I honestly didn't think I was going to get into it, because I kind of had like the same expectations, like, haha, this sounds stupid, I'm going to watch it. And then I watched the first episode and I was like, it kind of is what it is, like. But then you start getting into it, and once you get through like the first like 2 episodes, like it becomes that sort of like you're glued to the screen, like you got to know what happens next. Like you just keep it's like it's a page turner. If it was a book, this would be a page turner. Like you would just keep going. Like it's a pretty good show for what it is. Like it's another one that's kind of like fallen through the cracks, I would like to say, but honestly,
I think and that may be because people passed up on it in a lot of the same ways that like I mentally passed up on it, and so they just missed out.
Yep. And honestly, like, I mean, I can't really blame them. Like, it's not exactly like I wouldn't expect it from the synopsis either. So,
right?
No, yeah, because I read the basic like premise of it, and I was like, I'm good. I'm going to pass. I'm good. Good.
We've been burned one too many times on this kind of thing. Where it gets real skeevy.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
So, but okay, I'm glad to hear that it's a little more.
It's a little bit. It's more mature than you think it is.
I'm glad.
From the synopsis,
that makes me genuinely excited.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
The only unfortunate thing and this is just something I thought of, but from a meta context, it's kind of a shame that people will miss out on the show. Just because of the fact that the synopsis is just like it is
so poorly written, or doesn't not poorly written, but doesn't convey what the show is actually about. Rather, it just kind of like this is what the first.
It sums up the first episode,
yeah.
And I kind of hate when shows do that. But I also think that at the same time, like it kind of almost goes against the show's nature. Like it's talking about graying those boundaries, but the synopsis itself creates a boundary for people to not get into the show.
That's a good point.
Right, that makes sense.
And I'm like, I've just felt like it was kind of ironic. So I was like, that's just really unfortunate, really. That's not really a negative on the show.
No, I think it's just the way that
it's just really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I'm hoping that like this is one of those things that may be a sleeper hit for a lot of people where they missed out on initially during the season, but then like season later they're like, there's not really anything that interests me, and then they pick this thing up.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be very cool.
That'd be really good.
Or they listen to our podcast and then they go watch it.
Yeah.
Product placement.
Did you just plug our own podcast in our own podcast?
Yeah.
Do we have the money for the rights to that? Like, how are we going to afford this?
Trademark.
TM.
Copyright strike our own podcast.
Yeah, anything else that you wanted to say on that one in specific?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's, that's a thing.
Now, Matt, I am very, very interested because the way that it opened up and the way that all of a sudden things started twisting in it, I'm very interested in The Price of Smiles.
You want to hear about The Price of Smiles?
I want to hear about The Price of Smiles.
God, I wish I finished that.
I love... how far did you get, Zach?
I got 7 episodes through.
Oh my god, dude. Okay.
I did not have the time to finish it.
Now, I know I've been saying this like a couple times this podcast, like, you know, it's slipped through the cracks, it's underrated, you know, hit anime. Price of Smiles, severely underrated. Like, this show is actually good, and I don't know what you guys don't see in it for the people that have watched it. And
I thought you were addressing that towards me, and I was like, I'm sorry.
No.
I only got a chance to watch one episode.
I wasn't talking about you guys.
You piece of shit.
I'm a little bit bitter because I was watching it on Crunchyroll and there were some comments that I was just like, guys, did you even watch the show? Probably not. But give them the benefit of the doubt.
It's just
The Price of Smiles is so good. Oh
I
my
don't
god.
get how people don't like it, even just from watching the first half.
I don't
of the
understand
show.
how people don't get it. Like, it's not like a complicated story. It's basically about, like, I mean, so here's the thing. Like, The Price of Smiles is obviously about, like, you have the two sides. You have the Imperial Army, and you have the Sun Kingdom. I don't remember.
Was it Grandiga?
Yeah, I didn't remember the name, but yeah, thank you.
Wait, no. Grandiga might be the Imperial Army.
Yeah, that's the same thing. You're right. It's the Knights of whatever. Surreal.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Smile Kingdom and then Grandiga.
Yeah, that. Sure. We'll go with that for now. I don't remember the exact name. And so you have these two sides, and you think, oh, it's going to be a stereotypical war kind of Gundam-esque show where they're fighting, there's battles, they fight with stuff, blah, blah, blah. Like, and it starts out like that, but I don't understand. I wish everyone would have read the title, The Price of Smiles, but everyone thought it was The Prince of Smiles, so that was issue number 1.
Yeah.
So, like, first episode, like, you have all that stuff that happens, and then you have that major turn at the end that obviously reveals why the show is called what it is, and the show continues to follow through with that the entire show, by the way.
Oh boy, does it.
Yeah, you ever watch Game of Thrones? Not gonna say it's like that, but there's some characteristics that are a little similar.
I have a bit of a question. What is it exactly about this show that people were misunderstanding? Like, you say, did y'all even, like, watch the show, or that people didn't get it? Like, what exactly were people complaining about?
Okay, so, I don't remember what episode it happens. It's episode 3 or 4, where you get that whole perspective swap, like you're viewing it from the perspective of the Knights of Surreal or whatever, and then, like, episode 3 or 4, it switches perspectives. And then you get to see the Imperial Army's perspective, right? On the same battles, almost. Or at least their side of the conflict. If not the same kind of battle. So you kind of get to see the same... And what from that episode onward, one of the key aspects was that it's obvious that these two sides are struggling for sort of the same thing. Like... It becomes less of a story about one side versus the other, and becomes more of a, this is why this war is going on. Both sides are fighting for something, because this is how war is. Like, this is not just a power craze that they went on. They're fighting because resources are thinning, and both sides are trying to get the same, like, resource, and, to survive.
With the very, very few exception of World War II, almost every war in human history has just been about resources or about land. Like, that's it.
Yeah. But this is particularly important because, I mean, they're on this other planet, like, and at least it's implied this other planet, and it's basically about, like, if whoever loses the war, their people are going to die because they run out of food. Like, That's what's going to happen. Like, this is not a war that is on any sort of small scale. This is life or death for both sides. And one of the aspects of the show is that it switches perspectives, so you get both sides' perspectives on it. Like, we got to take back from these people, and we got to fight them off because we're trying to defend our people. And the other side's like, well, we got to secure this land because they have food to feed our people. Like, it becomes less of a which side is going to, like, which side is good or bad. Like, the good or bad aspect goes away at that point. It's just, like, these are two different, basically, I don't know what you want to call them, factions that are just trying to survive. Like, these are all people. They're just trying to live and have, fight for their family or the people that they care for. And they're just trying to survive, right?
Right.
And a lot of people, it seems like in the comments, were like trying to make it some kind of war story. Like they said, I don't like the perspective change because I don't like them. They're bad. And I'm like, you're missing the entire point of the story.
But they work so hard to humanize both sides.
I know they work super hard. Like, because I love the characters on both sides so much. Like, I was like, I really wish there was a solution that would just stop this. And that's,
I think, is definitely a credit.
That's the show, .jpg.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's definitely a credit to the show, the fact that they can have two warring factions. They're doing fucked up shit, and you can still feel for both of them.
Yeah.
Right.
And it became it. I mean, that was the whole goal. Like with the Princess Yuki, she was like, I wish there was a way I could just stop all this so people would just not die anymore. Like, I wish there was a way I could just do it. And she does everything in her freaking power. And this show, I'm not gonna lie, guys, this show made me so mad in some parts because this is all she wanted. She just wanted a way to end the conflict. And everybody in her way, if it was on the other side or if it was even on her own, like, sort of, like, in her own army, they were like, no, we're not going to do that because, I mean, we got to fight, right? Otherwise, they're just going to cream us. And it was like, and it was so, like, and there would be points where she's like, no, we're not going to do the strategy that you guys want. We're not going to fight them. We're just going to stay here. We're going to secure what we got. We're going to defend our people. Like, that's what we're going to do. We're not going to take land. We don't need it. Like, and she's all about, like, this, not pacifism, but just helping her people survive.
Yeah, and mitigating the casualties.
Yeah. I don't know if you would call it like mutualism or just wanting peace rather than just to fight for the sake of fighting. Almost at that point.
Yeah. And in this, and it's so sad because she proposes these solutions. Or there's sometimes she's just like, no, you guys cannot fight. Do not do that. I'm the leading, like, because at that point she's basically the leading monarch of the country. And she's like, don't do that. That's an order. And then somehow the commanders will sometimes still think that they know better. And they will go out and do some stupid crap that will cause a huge conflict. That will just, like... And it just made me so mad. Because I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
Matt, I would hate to see you in a 20th century history class. Oh gosh, you would get so mad at so many people.
I would. Like, but it was so frustrating to watch in this context because you know both sides. And then you see this stuff happen on this one side and the other side's just like, well, I guess we're just going to keep going then because...
retaliate.
Yeah, and they're like, this is what we got to do. And I'm like, this, and that's what made it even more painful was that later on there'd be an issue that would come up and they'd be like, I want us to surrender. Or the Knights of Surreal or whatever. They were like, I want us to surrender. And then the commander's like, no, we're not doing that. Sorry. And then they would just fire a whole bunch of shots and then they would, like, lose 10,000 people. And it's like, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Because they're like, we want to win. We gotta fight back against them. And to go back to your initial question, Zach, before I went on this huge rant, to address what makes me so frustrating, what frustrates me about people's views on this show is that they have that same mentality of those commanders. They're like, yeah, we gotta fight against the bad people. And I'm just like, no, it's clearly they're not bad people. Stop thinking that.
And they're kind of missing the entire point.
Like literally, that, it's the whole entire show is based around that point. Like I don't know how. It's just I don't know how they don't realize that.
Oh gosh, it reminds me of like all those schools that started banning 1984 because they're like, oh, it promotes communism. I'm like, did you fucking read the book? I think that's very much like a show of when this show is coming out, when this anime is coming out. Like, I feel like it's very much describing the times, and people are just not realizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, in a lot of ways, because, I mean, like, it's all about the horrors of war. It's not like a traditional mech show where, well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a traditional mech show because that'd be a disservice to this whole genre of shows. But people are seeming to view it as a very clear-cut, like, black and white kind of issue sort of thing that, for whatever reason, is, like, showing stuff of the quote-unquote bad guys. And, like, that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't even say this is a massively cerebral show from what I watched of it. Like, you don't have to do a whole lot of specific thinking to actually sit through and see, oh, these are actually people. They're actual living beings on both sides, and not everyone is painted as good or bad or things of that nature. Like, people are people characters. Because, I mean, like, the whole first episode, you know, Grandiga is viewed and framed as, you know, this villainous country that is looking to, you know, take this land back, and, you know, they violated a peace treaty and all sorts of other stuff. And so we have this clear framing device there, but the next two episodes are working to show, hey, things aren't as clear-cut as you want them to be. Because, I mean, like, they have that whole part where they're talking about the squad commander, Gail Owens, who, like, just runs an orphanage on his own and adopts kids that are, like, prisoners of war and things of that nature, and does everything that he can to actually provide a good life for these people that are suffering through war. And it's wild to me that people are not looking at this stuff and viewing it in such a way that, like, the countries are not, like, representative of everyone that's within them. Just because the leaders of this country are waging war does not mean everyone within these factions are bad people, or that's a black and white issue. There's some not great people in the Kingdom of Soleil.
Yeah,
like, it's, that's really frustrating to me. That's infuriating, because again, I've only watched about half of this, but, like, it does not take that much to get this show's point.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you literally watch the first 6 episodes, you'll get the idea.
Oh, hey, there's fucked up people on both sides. Weird.
What a shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, oh, I want to puke.
Yeah, it's just, it's one of those shows that I hate. I mean, like, honestly, I mean, the closest, like, thing I could compare it to is Aldnoah Zero, but honestly, like, even though Aldnoah Zero arguably, which has a lot, well, I wouldn't even say arguably, Aldnoah Zero has a lot better of a production value, but the story and how they do it in that show, nowhere near as good as this show. Like, honestly, this show took those ideas and made it better.
Ooh, okay.
And
I'm excited.
Hot damn, alright.
Now, as I said, I wouldn't say that honestly, the show is pretty good. Like, it's obviously, the soundtrack has nowhere near anything that on Sawano's soundtrack of Aldnoah Zero. Like, there's no way you can compare to that, unfortunately. But it's still good. Price of Smiles has a good soundtrack. The animation does suffer from some very weird quality issues later on. But it honestly doesn't hurt the show a whole lot. Because it's more about the ideas that I felt like, at least, it was more about the ideas than it was what the characters would look like on particular frames. So, but besides that, honestly, like, The Price of Smiles is, like, if I had to say, like, that's got to be the underrated show of the season. Like, it's got, like, a 6 or something on Mal, and, like, a 6 something on, like, all the other sites. Like, it's got, like, close to a 6, guys. Like, it's almost, like, in 5 territory.
I feel like, for entirely different reasons, obviously not sexism, I feel like this is very similar to the Captain Marvel situation, where it's just, like, something's getting fucking bombed, and it does not deserve it.
Yeah. Like, and honestly, yeah. Like, I honestly don't know, like, what else I could say about the show, except, like, literally just, it's a spectacle. Like, the show itself, like, I would say, at least until, like, maybe even, like, the last episode, like, it is absolutely, like, and I'm not going to say the last episode was a disaster, but it was predictable. I would say that, like, the show in itself is an experience. Like, you just have to watch it. Like, or at least watch it until, like, I would say, like, until 10 or 11. Like, it's worth it. Like, just to get this... Since it's an original show, as well, I should probably plug that. There's no source material. It's just got this... It's got a great idea and a great concept, and it utilizes the concept. And it executes on it. Like, it honestly just does what it needs to, and then it's done. I wish it was 2 seasons. I swear, I think if the show had 2 seasons, that could have been a 10 out of 10. Like, I'm absolutely convinced. Like,
damn, yeah.
Like, it is just that. It is absolutely a must watch. Like, it is that good. Like, even with the caveats that I've described, it is still a great show.
I mean, I believe it. It's, again, I loved every moment of it, watching it going forward, and even though I thought it had some pacing issues, I thought it was really good and telling a really compelling story. So I'm definitely excited to get around to finishing it at some point soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but
it's definitely worth it. As I said, at least until, like, you know, I mean, you might as well just finish it. Like, it's just a good show.
Right.
It's right up there with some of my other favorites from the season. So, like, honestly, this season is loaded, guys. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, this season got so many good shows. Like, it's amazing.
That's the shitty thing, is that we're only going to be talking about a select few shows, when this season has had so many good shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate.
Did you watch any shows individually that weren't a nightmare, Matt?
No. I didn't watch a single show that was a nightmare.
Which is saying something, because you've watched like 40 fucking shows.
No, that's what I mean. Like, did you watch a single show individually that wasn't like an emotional train wreck?
An emotional train wreck? Oh,
I think I covered most of those.
I mean, I watched Quintessential Quintuplets. That wasn't an emotional train wreck.
Really?
Oh, right. Yeah. I'm really curious to hear about this, because I've heard a lot of good stuff about it.
That's another one of those shows that, like, the way that it was initially phrased in synopsis, I was like, that's okay. And then, like, apparently it's a great show.
See, this is, again, I think a problem with viewing the shows without watching them. Mm-hmm. Because when I first saw this show, you know what I thought? I was like, well, I get... Because I was doing the whole, like, watch one episode of everything, right? So... Yeah. I was like, I got to this one, and I was like, man, I almost don't want to watch this one. Because, I mean, I saw it, and I was like, oh, it's got a guy, it's got a bunch of girls, like...
It's a harem with a bunch of sisters. Like, twins at that... Well, not twins, but quintuplets. Yeah.
Yeah, quintuplets, like, and I'm thinking, like, it's a harem, and it had, like, an ecchi tag, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be icky, but I'm going to watch it, because at that point, it was obligation. I'd already watched, like, their 25 out of, like, 40, so I was like, well, might as well just keep going. So I watched it, and I was like, there's no ecchi in this. And then I proceeded to watch the next 10 episodes, and was like, there's no ecchi in this. You know, then the ecchi tag disappeared. So...
it is funny, yeah.
And I'm like, I wish people would stop that. Like, stop adding tags after the show comes out and removing them.
I don't remember what the 2 shows were, but I remember that I remember what one of them was. One of them was Dungeon, and it had no ecchi tag. Mm-hmm. And then there was another show that we were watching together, Matt.
That was Amagi you're thinking of. It had a harem ecchi tag.
It had a
and then it got removed.
Tag. And I was like... Neither of these tags make any fucking sense, especially when Dungeon was like just a stone's throw away from being like a fucking harem ecchi the entire time.
Yeah. Like,
gosh.
And honestly, like, Dungeon's a bad show. Don't watch it.
Here's the weird thing is that people have been saying that the spinoff of it is actually pretty good. Anyways, moving on.
I don't know about that, so I haven't seen it or read it. So, no. So Quintessential Quintuplets or Quintuplets. I don't know how you pronounce it. I don't care. Sue me.
Quintuplets? I assume it's quintuplets.
I assume it's quintuplets. I think you're fine.
All right. Well, this show is. I know people are gonna probably yell at me at this, but I really do not think of like it is I'm gonna call it a quote unquote harem show. I know people are probably gonna say whatever about that, but I honestly don't think it's got the aspects, right? So like there's a bunch of girls and it's obvious that they're all going to have feelings for him at some point in time, right? Like that's gonna happen. But that's not really like it's not like a harem series like you would think like trying to think of a garbage one off the top of my head. I don't watch a lot of garbage harems. I don't know. It's not like a harem where they're like all like in your face about it all the time. This show is more about like this is more about the characters, right? So like you've got these 5 sisters, which the main character, by the way, the main character does not give a shit about romance. He doesn't give a shit. Like, so, let me give you the rundown.
Fantastic.
let me give you the rundown. So, basically, the first episode goes through all this, but he basically is poor. He lives in kind of a poor-ish household. Like, he lives with his sister and his dad, which his dad's always in and out doing stuff. And his sister... goes to school, but you come home, like they come home to eat dinner and they have like if they have curry like once a month and that's a fancy meal, like they're like have no money, like they're like they have like if you could imagine like my dad always describes like how when he was a kid and he was poor, like they would have like beans and cornbread every day. Well, that was the equivalent of their meal, like every day.
So like Great Depression era kind of thing.
Yeah, like it's like they're not like starving, but like I mean, in the first episode, the main character he goes to the cafeteria to get food, and he has found a way to budget the cafeteria menu so that he gets the most food for the least amount of price. Like he like and it's something weird.
I've been there.
Brilliant.
Like he said, like he orders like what is it, like beef curry without the beef or something, so it goes down price like our equivalent of like $1.50, and he gets like
that's good.
the right like he's a mastermind in that regard. So anyway, he needs money, and he runs across one of the sisters, which you don't know they're quintuplets. That's kind of like the big reveal of the first episode.
Got it.
But yeah, she's talking about like they don't do well. Like she doesn't do well in school, but she doesn't want help studying because she's selfish and stubborn.
Would you say selfish or prideful?
Prideful, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It depends on how you could view it, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah. So and his anyway, he goes home. And his dad says, like, hey, I got a job offer for you. He's like, you can make 10,000 yen tutoring a student. And he's like, oh, that's cool. I can do that. And, like, through some happenstance, like, he accepts this job offer. And then he finds the student was the girl that he met the previous day that's already, like, really angry at him because of their previous encounter. And then shenanigans happen, and then they basically exchange words that like, yeah, I'm gonna be the one teaching you, like I'm your tutor. And she's like, what? And she's like, fine, I guess I'll accept this, whatever. I don't like it though. And anyways, he ends up going to their house and finds out there's 5 of them he actually has to tutor. And then the pay is actually gonna be 50,000. that was 10,000 a person.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
$500.
Yeah, 50,000. Yeah, so that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
and he's like, but the bad thing is that he's got to make one of the terms and conditions of the job is that he's got to get them all to graduate.
Shit!
And so he has them take all practice tests, right? And he's like, "Congratulations, y'all got 100. If I combined all your tests together."
Oh no!
So we're talking about like scores that are like 15s and 20s.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This, like, that's what the whole show's about. Like, that's the premise of the whole show."
It's like, I have to deal with this shit.
And not only that, they hate him because they are.
Well, yeah, because he's like completely rebuking them because they're giving poor scores.
Yeah. Not only that though, like they don't like him because like they just want to do their own thing. Like this is, and they're just like they've been like, I don't want to say sheltered, but I want to say that
they've been left to their own devices.
Yeah, they've kind of just been like they've had some there was obviously some family issues that happened, so like all the sisters are like bonded together, like really closely knit
because they had each other and no one else, kind of thing.
Yeah, and basically like they kind of just rebuke all outsiders. Like they're just like basically you can see them at school like they're only friends with each other. Like that's it. Like this is like that's the kind of scenario that this is. So
oh no,
half of the challenge is just getting them to listen to him. Like he's like, "Hey, we need to do a practice test," and they're like, "Nah," and they just like, "I'm gonna go to my room," or "I'm gonna go do this," or do whatever, and they like it's anyway. Like that's the whole premise of the show. Like
it's just like a hey, what about fuck you? Actually,
yeah. There is a particular character that literally is like, "Hey, yeah, fuck you," and she just does whatever. Like, there was a debatable scene within episode 1. It was I would not say that it was in the best of taste. But okay, well once you describe it you'll understand why. So it's like it's not because of exactly how it happened, it was what happened. Basically one of the girls is ultra protective of her other sisters because of all the shit they've been through.
Right.
And like one of the things she came up with was she's like, "Okay, we got to get rid of him. Like we don't want him here, so let's just get rid of him." And so one of the things she does was she's like, she makes him makes him a meal, right? And she's like, "Don't worry, I didn't put anything in it." And he's like, yeah, I don't believe that for a second. So he's like, "I'm not eating the food." And she's like, "Okay, that's fine." Anyway, turns out he drank the water, and then the next thing he was on like the front steps of their apartment.
Oh my gosh. That just reminds me of the men who stare at goats. Gosh, there was an amazing scene that's like the exact same thing about that.
And the thing is that like, yeah, drugging people is not right. Like we don't have to spell that. No, not good.
Okay.
No. But the way it was handled was kind of funny because she just has this expression as he drinks the water. She's just like, "Bye-bye." And he's just like, "What?" And then he's just on the apartment. The execution was kind of funny. The act itself is obviously not something that anyone should ever do.
Right. Yeah.
But one of those things that's funny in context.
right.
So, but I mean, it's just a show full of shenanigans, and then like, but a lot of it is just about like establishing a bond with these characters. Not you, but the main character.
Right.
But you maybe you as well. Like you get to learn the characters, and you kind of like, learn why they do certain things, like why they rebuke him, why certain characters don't like him, why they're doing other things, like learning about like what they want to do, why they're not studying, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like It's got like a lot of good aspects to it, and then like the romance aspects like trickle in like over time. Like, I mean, I just watched episode 12 a little while ago, and I mean that was finally the first big like hint of like some kind of romance is kind of like stirring.
Damn.
But also the story kind of front faces you with it as well. Like it says like, because the whole story is a flashback, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier.
Okay.
The whole story itself is a flashback because it's a story about how the main character met his wife, which yeah,
it's a how I met your mother. Yeah, how I met your mother.
Sure, it can be like that if we want to do that comparison. Yeah. Yeah, so like that's what the story front faces you with that. It's like, yeah, this is like I'm getting married today, like, and this is how kind of I met my wife, and then the whole thing's a flashback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, all right,
yeah, and then occasionally a flash forward. The funny thing is though is that you get a clear picture of what the wife looks like. It doesn't help. That's pretty because it's kind of comical in that way because you're like, it's the one that has
100% intentional.
Yeah,
it's the one with the red hair.
What?
It's the one with the red hair.
Yep, it's the one with the red hair. And it's a
that narrows it down.
The funny thing is that in the anime they all have different hair colors, but in the manga they have all the same hair colors. So a little bit people are a little bit mad about that little discrepancy. But if you think about it as they all have red hair, like because they would, because they're quintuplets. Right. That is the I mean, there's no way to tell which one it is. So it's kind of like just a whole like. It's kind of almost like a big fuck you in the face. Like, because then later on they'll give different reveals, like of different scenes from the future. And it's like, I don't know who this is.
God, that's fantastic.
It's like the biggest troll. Good. It's like the biggest troll.
That's very good. I enjoy that.
But it's pretty unique. Like, I'm going to have to give hats off to it. Pretty unique show. And it's not malicious in any way. Yeah, or at least
the way you
minus the drugging,
it,
but
yeah, the way that you explained it sounds like it's more just trying to have fun.
Yeah, It's definitely a very fun show. Like you can get into it, and you can like there's a lot of jokes, there's a lot of humor. It doesn't get really deep. Occasionally, it'll like have an emotional moment, but then it's done, and we're back to the shenanigans, which that's what these shows kind of thrive on anyway, or they should. So.
Right, and I can dig that.
But I mean, I love the show. Like, but I mean, I've started buying the manga now. Like,
oh wow, so it really got.
I buy stuff all the time, but yeah, I usually pick and choose what manga I buy. But yeah, I like it. Like, it's a good little show. It's a good little story. It hits the right beats for me.
I can dig that because like it's definitely a show that I read the description and I was pretty solidly just not impressed. Mm-hmm. But you know, after thinking, oh god, I've read this harem a bunch of times, so the fact that it's really kind of in a way subverting a lot of those ideas and not really playing up into that is really satisfying for me, and I'll probably actually get around to watching it.
Yeah, like it's totally worth it. Like it's kind of just a show that you can like after a long hard day you can just watch it and you're just like, yes, this is nice. There's no real tension. It's just stupid people doing stupid things.
I love it.
It's good. It's great. Like I mean, I totally enjoy it. It is. I would like to say it's a guilty pleasure, but honestly, there's nothing really to feel guilty about at the end of the day. Like,
right, just because like the only thing you would feel guilty is that some people would call it a harem, even though it's not. Like,
and even that's the kind of the whole thing. Like,
of a harem.
It's like everyone is like probably is looking down on it because it's a harem series, but I'm like, in reality, like, what does that really mean? Like, it's honestly more about how the execution is than it is about the actual, like, what you call it. And that, anyway, that's why I think genre tags and genre dumps are sometimes stupid. So,
it really is.
Well,
there's no real reason.
And I also think
it.
that, like, you can get into situations in which you have, like, polyamorous relationships that you wouldn't necessarily define as a harem, as well as you can have polyamorous relationships in which, like, yeah, okay, it's a harem, but, like, we're doing something interesting with it.
Right. I think well, the point I was trying to get at was that it doesn't matter what you call it, it can still be good. Like, the problem is people attach harem to it and then immediately think garbage, into the trash.
I mean, to be fair.
Right.
But
like,
I mean,
and me have seen very different harems.
I mean, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like I understand limited time and all that, but, you know, it's maybe not a great idea to continue to promote a stigma that may not be true, but I don't really believe in that. So I'm just saying I'm more of a person that judges it based on its own merit than it is to lump it all together and throw it in the trash bag. But
right. Give it a chance to actually see its execution rather than just write it off immediately.
Yeah.
So that was the trying to think, was there any other individual shows that we were going over that one of us has seen and the other people haven't?
I don't think so.
No, but you really got me hyped up now. That Price of Smiles discussion, like, really, like, I've got, like, energy in my veins now.
Oh boy.
So what do we want to do? We want to go ahead and do Bang Dream first? Do we want to do Kaguya-sama? Like, what's the deal, y'all?
Yeah, because all three of us decided to watch Love is War and Bang Dream. I am good with either, actually, because I genuinely enjoyed both for their individual merits.
Can we go for it?
You what?
Oh, I was just gonna say. Oh shit! I already forgot. Thanks.
Great. Why don't we do like Kaguya-sama? Because I think that one is, I want to do a deep dive into. It's right on my top of the head.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. I want to talk about the little crackhead Kokoro, but we can do Kaguya-sama. Let's do it.
We'll get to there.
Kaguya-sama, I genuinely enjoyed more than what I thought I did. And I'm so mad at myself that I had the manga pulled up on like a tab for like 3 months before this anime aired. and I didn't read it because I was like, oh, that looks like it's going to be a drama. And like I didn't even read the genre tags for it. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, as we just described, though, those are always inaccurate. So
that's the thing.
Sometimes inaccurate, so it's hard to tell.
It's also very funny, though, because at the end of the season, the genre tags that it has, at least on AniList AniChart, is comedy, romance, psychological.
Now, that's not the same definition they've used for the psychological tag before.
Yeah, I know.
So that bugs me.
But it does deserve it, though.
It does, but not in the way that, like, Psychopath is the psychological tag. So,
Right, there's a difference between a psychological thriller and a psychological comedy.
This is my second 10 out of 10 this season.
Oh, really?
It's so good.
It's very perfect. Good.
Okay, I'm gonna honest opinion, gave it a 9. But I mean, I have that's pretty high for me. So
I mean, like, to me, this is pretty much a near perfect rom-com. I don't know what the show could have done differently to make me score it lower, just because I didn't really have any issues with it. It's so good.
The execution is just so good.
It is.
There's a weird, like, dubious scene in, like, episode 10 when Kaguya is sick. But it's handled pretty well, honestly.
I think all things considered, the way that it handles it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's a scene that could have gone very wrong very easily, and they handled it really well as its aftermath. So I think it did a really good job with that.
Yeah.
So I don't actually have an issue with it. I'm just saying, like, if there was anything that I would have to kind of knock it down, it would maybe be that if I had interpreted it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But God, this show's so good. Like, the whole format for it, where it starts out as like this solid like romance battle shonen kind of bullshit kind of thing almost. Just the absolute psychological warfare it starts out with is really funny, and its dialogue and the way that they actually develop these characters in these little like wars with each other is fantastic. They have incredible charisma and really solid chemistry together, and you know, just Kaguya and our good old, what the fuck, why am I missing his name?
Shirogane?
Yes.
Or the
Thank
other
you
one?
for that. No, it's Shirogane. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that. They have incredible chemistry together, and like the fact that it is just this like funny, goofy little thing is great. But I love that they don't just stay with that.
Yes, I think that was the biggest thing that I enjoyed, is that they took this basic concept and then decided to put a ton of character development in for these characters.
Right. So like the thing is for me, for instance, take a show like Gekkan Shoujo no Zaki-kun.
Yeah.
Which is pretty similar, I would say, in like I mean, just if we're comparing shows, it is pretty close, right?
Yeah, it's very, very close and it's very similar. But a lot of what it does is there's not really a ton of character development.
Right.
Like, most of the development is for the side characters. And so for that particular show, that works perfectly. Because for where it is and how much it adapts with the manga and just the general, like, format of the piece itself, like, it's a 4-koma adaptation. It's supposed to be, like, a bunch of, like, haha goofs kind of thing.
Right.
But here, with Kaguya-sama, with these really intricate, complicated characters of Shinomiya and Shirogane, God, just the fact that it is a continuous like stream of goofs, but also some really genuinely interesting, meaningful character development, like blindsided me every single week. It was incredible, and I'm so consistently astounded by this. Like, it was the highlight of my Saturdays.
I look forward to it every Saturday. I was like, oh yes, it's time.
Yeah, because I was like vibrating into my couch. I was like, I need it, give it, please. It's so good.
Yeah, this was one of those that like when I first started it, I actually kind of had it on in the background on like a second screen. While I was trying to do something else, and I would just like read the subtitles and everything like that. But then like easily within a few episodes, I was just like, oh, I gotta focus on this. Oh my god. Oh no. Like, I was like,
it gets pretty real sometimes, like unexpectedly.
That's the thing, is that I thought that I could just get through the goofs and that would be one thing and I would enjoy the goofs, but then like there's genuine character development between a lot of these characters, and the way that they interact with each other does dramatically change over the course of the series. And they remember that. And they also remember previous jokes that they've done. So there's a lot of callback to like how much these characters have expanded over the course of the series. And gosh, is it good.
Man, I'll just never forget the first time I saw, I think it was episode 4, and then they play that word game.
Oh
like,
my god.
When that started, that whole thing started happening, I was like, what's going on right now? Like, am I watching a show? Because it was the same, like, psychological kind of game that they've always been doing, but then, like, I think that was the first time I realized that, wow, Chica is just a chaotic entity. Like, I have no idea what the fuck she's gonna do.
And just an absolute body of chaos personified. I know a lot of people say she's best girl. I don't agree, but wow, holy shit, what an unbelievable amount of development we get out of this dumbass side character who is absolutely not a dumbass.
That's the interesting thing, too, is that part of her chaotic nature is that you originally write her off as like, oh, she's the dumb character of the show. And then you find out she's actually very cunning in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But so here's the thing, like, and obviously no one's gonna have the answer to this except people that have read the manga, but apparently, like, I have some really, like, still very weird vibes about her character. Like, I have a feeling that there's something very, very interesting below the surface that we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
And that excites me, but also scares me. But it's I think her character is pretty interesting in what they've done in the anime. Like,
Oh, yeah.
because it's obviously shown that she's definitely thinking about what she's doing, at least.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Right.
not,
But
definitely
she also-
not the dumb character.
Well, I mean, this is a prestigious school, and as much as these are just rich people that got an in, like, you do see that these characters, especially whenever they go through the whole arc about them, like, taking the tests, which is, like, I say arc, but it's, like, 2 episodes, of them taking these tests, you do see that she actually is smart. It's just that she may not be, like, the smartest person in the world. She's just, smart.
Yep. She's smart. She's cunning. She would kind of be in the yearbook of like most likely to firebomb a church or something like that. I think. I know what you mean, Matt. I think she's kind of got like she sort of seems like she has this kind of hairpin trigger where something wild could come out of her at like the drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I know she can put up a wild rap battle, but
good rap battle. She can raise some boys.
yeah, apparently.
The fucking volleyball episode, and just her looking at Shirogane
I
after
saved
it's all done,
that
and she just
image.
says, "I raised that boy.
I raised that boy.
I raised that boy.
I died. Yeah, I fucking died.
I screenshotted it too. I was like, oh my gosh, they did it.
And that's one of the things about this, in that it has such a specific brand of humor for it that I've scarcely seen in other rom-coms or just comedies in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so very clearly its own thing, and it does it so goddamn well.
I also like that it has these interesting twists to it from a meta level that I like really enjoyed, in which like the narrator will say something and then all of a sudden it'll do a VCR rewind, be like, let's back up a little bit.
Yep.
And then show you like a small little detail that like wasn't there originally, and you're like, oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, and it treats each of the characters with so much equal gosh dang respect. Like even if they're like a dumb character or a chaotic character compared to the main cast of like the 2 individuals, like there's always something that like they do with that character that makes you just love that character immensely.
Oh yeah.
Except Ishigami's a shitbag. Absolute shitbag, but it doesn't make any qualms about that. It lets you know that pretty clearly.
Yeah, and it
But
kind
I still
of
like him regardless.
And it kind of like allows you to be like, okay, he's a shitbag, and then like even his own character is just like, yeah, I'm a shitbag. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, he is still constructed in such a way that like you can't help but like parts of him. Like,
Right.
there's no one in this show that I'm like, oh god, it's this person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's done incredibly well in crafting a cast that is comfortable, that is interesting, entertaining, and I don't know. It's real good.
Oh, it's very good.
I don't know about you
I think-
guys, but I feel like all the characters are relatable on a certain level.
I think
Oh,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Just the absolute like anxious mess that Ishigami is. I'm like a hard mood all day, every day. But also same thing with Shirogane and Shinomiya, both like overthinking every last little thing that they do.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have pages and notes of planning everything, but I have like maybe said a sentence or a phrase or something a couple weeks
And then
back,
done like
and I
galaxy
still think,
brains
like,
to interpret it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is taking this wildly relatable series of just basic things and magnifying them to such an absurd level that it is pretty much impossible to not laugh at it. It's cathartic in a way, almost.
I can also appreciate on like a separate level the fact that like it treats both of its main protagonists in their romance as very equal.
Yes. Yep.
I appreciate that immensely, because you have these occasional times in which it's like, oh, it's a war of the sexes, and then they try to like preference one sex over the other. But in this, absolutely not. It's just both are doofuses. Both are highly intelligent doofuses. And it just makes for such great characterization in that way.
Unrelated, but related but unrelated. Have you guys seen that meme with the "what I expected, what I got" from Kaguya?
No, actually, I haven't seen it.
It's the scene from the opening where they have like the fake gun or the plastic gun where they're pointing at the other person.
Mm-hmm. From behind them.
Yeah, from behind them, like they come out from their shadow basically, and like
right.
Shirogane is pointing at I don't remember, Shinomiya, and the other way, vice versa, basically. Well, that's the what I expected, and then the what I got was that they're just pointing the plastic gun at themselves. It's playing with the fact that they're dumbasses.
Oh gosh, it's very good.
They just outsmarted themselves, but I thought it was a pretty clever meme. I was like, yeah, that sums up the show pretty well.
It's so wonderful that you can take the basic idea of two people that genuinely do like each other but are way too prideful to admit it to each other, and then blast it so high out of proportion that it becomes so fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But
it's.
I mean, I know I said this last time, but I mean, maybe not for everyone, but this was relatable on some level.
I think so. Yeah. I think that when you're in a relationship, you tend to like overanalyze a lot of things. And so the fact that that's basically the basis behind this whole show is like, hey, these people are like in a pseudo relationship and they are going to overanalyze everything.
Well, heck, I think even if you just like somebody, that can turn into a big clusterfuck really fast.
Yeah, I mean, even whenever you're friends with people, like that happens. And so I think that definitely rings true for like a lot of the interactions that you see with Fujiwara, like Chika, like very much one of those situations in which like people are like, what is she gonna do? And it's like, you can't even fucking guess. You have no concept.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was a genuinely enjoyable show.
Yeah, but not only that, like this show had some hard-hitting moments too. Like
I liked it was able to almost, I want to say easily, but that's not fair to the show. It was able to very effectively balance those like hard-hitting emotional moments with the comedy and have both ring true.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what was a relatable scene that you were looking to talk about, or a hard-hitting scene you were thinking of?
Well, just one that popped off the top of my head. I would say maybe not relatable, but one of the more emotional scenes, one of the first cues that we get into the series, I feel, is the one where they're at the with all the I don't want to say diplomacy, but they're with the French school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that whole scene where like there's that woman that I don't know, she had like a tongue piercing or something.
Yeah, student from the French school.
Yeah, and she like goes and approaches Shirogane and she like says all these words, but he doesn't understand a lick of it because he doesn't speak any French at all apparently. And she like just like blurts all these horrible things, and then like he's just puzzled the entire time, and then Kaguya comes out of nowhere and she just like blasts her, like
she eviscerates
and
her.
Then and I'm just like the fallout from that, like from where they were talking, like because I think like that was a funny scene, like that that scene itself was funny, but then the part after that where it got like pseudo serious, where he's like, hey, you know that like you didn't have to like do that. He's like, I didn't even know what she was saying, you know, like you don't have to feel bad about it. I don't know what you said, but yeah, like that was like the first cue, but there were several scenes like that, like especially if you got towards the end of the show.
I was gonna say, especially once you start getting towards the end, it definitely adds a lot more of those in which you can see that these people genuinely feel for each other, not even just on like a romantic level, but just that group definitely is supportive of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved that so much. Yeah, no, that was a good show.
It's such a good show. It's another one I think I could just recommend. Like,
absolutely, like flat out recommend. The
watch
only
it.
thing is, I am very, very particular when it comes to like whenever things start to get like cringy, I guess you would call it. And there were plenty of times in which these people are like, let me just bullshit my way through this. And so like I was just like, but but like that's on a personal note. Is that like I just have a very low tolerance whenever it comes to cringe. But getting through
that's fair.
Yeah, getting through that, I was like, good gosh, I fucking love this show.
Yeah, like I personally didn't feel a lot of that, but I can see how if you have a low threshold for that, it could be kind of
right, especially when they have these multiple skits in which people approach them about like, I'm in love and I want to know about this, and it's like,
I love those though.
Those are so
they're
good.
very good. No, they're very good, and I like the resolutions for them, but it's just my insanely low tolerance whenever it comes to cringe. Mm-hmm. But no, they're very good. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like this is also definitely one I would pretty much recommend anyone at this point. It's so good. It's such a great encapsulation of what it's trying to do.
Yes.
God,
yeah,
I love it.
It's so another one of those that we saw with like Eurocamp, in which like it has a particular thing that it sets up even in the first episode, and then it just absolutely nails that so solidly for 12 episodes.
Yeah, I can't think of anything it really did wrong, like Zach said earlier.
Right, like you said, Zach, I think that the situation in which they put themselves in is a little skeevy, but at the same time, the way that they approached it was very, very well done.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like it was a good approach for character development, so I really don't have an issue with it. So
right, and I think that in that particular scene, they then not only were like, it was a funny one-off, but then they consistently referenced it and allowed both characters to grow because of it. I think was very good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
it's real good, and it is so much more than it seems from like the first 2 episodes.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just give it a try if you haven't. Again, what are you doing? Why are you not watching this?
Why are you listening to the podcast? Go watch it, etc.
Pause the podcast. Come back and let us know how it is after you watch it.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Bang Dream?
My gosh, I'm actually pretty stoked.
I'm excited. Matt, I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Matt, it's your fucking fault. I'm addicted to a rhythm.
See, I got one.
Legitimately, there was a moment in which I picked up my phone and I was about to get on the Android Play Store, and I was like, no, stop.
I can't go a day without playing.
It's good though. Like,
it's good, yeah.
Like, but look, I'm gonna be real with you, dude. I probably put more time into the game than watching the anime.
I mean, that's fair. Like, the game is so good.
I feel like I know more about the characters from the game than the show.
That's probably also true.
Yeah, I feel like I have an interesting perspective among us three in that I have not played the game at all. So my relationship to these characters was very much the show, which actually does factor into how I felt about the show. Because for the first 3 episodes, I genuinely did it was a mixture of trying to figure out who all the fuck these 30 fucking characters were. And then also, like, on top of that, I was just like, I don't know if I'm like super into this as much as I was into like Idolmaster or Love Live. And then like it hit the 4th episode.
Oh my god.
Yep. And I know what episode that is.
My good little crackhead.
Oh, so good.
And it opens up with one of the characters in an Iron Man-esque like bear suit falling to the fucking earth. And I was like, wait, that was just like a dream sequence or something, right?
I
Welcome to Bang Dream, buddy.
I don't understand how. So like where something like Love Live or Idolmaster, it does have some like weird, ridiculous, over the top stuff.
It very much grounds it. This show,
Bang Dream,
on the
doesn't.
other hand,
Bang Dream is pretty. Bang Dream is like being in a 0 gravity zone, and like you have a bungee cord tethering you to the ground, but you're kind of just going everywhere else, anyways.
Yeah, and it's not even that you like controlled the movement of like how you're moving now. It's like, no, someone pushed you. You're going all over the place. You have no control over it.
I just like. that episode, it has the intro there, but then we're kind of basically introduced to Kokoro by her jumping out of a second-story window and cartwheeling her way over.
I want to point out, she didn't normally jump out the window. She did a backflip out the window, and then like her CGI model looked like it was doing a cartwheel on the side of the building, and then just turned that into a like cartwheel on the ground and kept going.
Yeah, that's pretty in character, honestly. Like, you might say that was not a good CGI render. That's probably in character.
No, like later on, whenever you see them like actually performing, especially during like the final performance, you see how fucking full of life this person is. I was like, good gosh, this girl like is just the lead singer of Foxy Shazam. She has like limitless energy and is somehow able to force that into like the limitations of doing a show, which you have to be that fucking energetic for like 3 fucking hours or whatever. I'm like, good gosh, girl. But I believe that she could do it, even if the shows that they were putting on were only like a few songs long, so it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't know, like I guess in a way I don't want to just say like this is like a haha lol so random kind of idol edition show, because it's not.
It's not.
Like it. I say it's balls to the walls, just like wild shit all the time. But there really is a lot of discussion of, you know, I can't say a whole lot because, again, I haven't seen the first season of this, so I didn't have, like, a bunch of crediting for that anyways.
I think it was, like, episode 9 or 10, they had that, like, montage where it's like, look at all the shit that we've been through, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this.
Yep. That's okay. Again, it wouldn't have really helped yet. Like, I mean, you got the gist of it, probably. Like,
yeah.
Right. But I think ultimately, like, it gives us a very good discussion of growing up into something like this, because it seems as though like this starts as a very fun, like, I love being with you all and I love doing this and this is a passion I want to pursue. But as they work to see like, oh my god, planning a live show is fucking rough. There's so much that goes into this.
I like that it has very open discussions about like, oh yeah, there's a fuck ton of shit that you have to do whenever you are a performer by job. Like, that's pretty crazy. And I thought it was very cool that it wanted to approach that topic in the first place. Granted, it did it in a highly, highly optimistic way, because you didn't see a single one of these people just like bomb their set. But
I think Love Live has done that enough for us.
Honestly, yeah. I
can't take another Love Live series where they failed a performance.
Yeah, I
can't do it.
The closest we got is that they were not able to perform once, and it was, but it was very pertinent to the story, so it was cool.
Yeah, and it was like technical difficulties.
Yeah, right, so. And everybody still made the best of it.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, by the way, that like some of the other bands, granted, we have a major focus on what are they called? Pop and Party?
Yeah, Pop and Party.
Yeah, Pop and Party, because it's Poppy Pa.
Poppy Papu.
Poppy Pa. The Pop and Party, they're the major focus of the story, very obviously. Which I think was nice in order to ground a lot of things, although I do appreciate that they're like, hey, we have these shit ton of characters, we're just going to dedicate whole episodes to these other characters. And I'm like, awesome, I'm down. Because I thought that it was very cool that we can see a lot of these characters and how they interact with each other and what their lives are compared to the other performers. But where we had this major focus on Pop and Party, most of the drama in this series is very much like something mildly negative happens to them, and then they have an existential crisis about it. I felt like there were particular things that went on that I was like, you really gonna get emotional about this? Like, you're in a band. This thing happens. That just happens. And that's not a detriment to the show. I just think that it was one of those things where it's like they're young performers, and they're very new to this, and so like they're having to deal with their first initial struggles with like a band member wanting to leave, or a band member wanting to do something else on the side, or like, you know, having to trade in like, oh, I can't do that one set because I have to do another set and things like that. And it's like, these things happen. It doesn't destroy a band because one person is not able to show up to a performance.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get what you mean. I think, honestly, I think that's just part of the unfortunate part of having Popping Party as the focus of the story, is that sometimes they're just not relatable.
I think the big thing for me, and I want to say that this is on a personal level, because other people will be like, no, I was fine with it. But for me, I felt it was very unrealistic that, like, if anything negative happened to this band, they had this huge, like, 5-person existential crisis about it. But then they always got through it. It was just like, no, we're going to do the right thing. And we're going to, like, do it this way because we're a group and we're going to do something about it. I'm like, cool, that's great. I'm glad that you got through it. It just always felt crazy to me that, like, almost every other episode, all of a sudden these girls were, like, constantly questioning their lives, their futures, and, like, what can they do as a band? And I'm like, really? Seems like a little much.
Shit's rough, dude.
Shit's rough whenever you're a young performer. Just ask Justin Bieber. So for this, but even through that, I felt that, like, it was very good at, like, representing, like, oh yeah, there are definite struggles along the way if you want to make a career or want to do something with being a performer, specifically being in a band. And I liked that it addressed those problems openly, if in a very optimistic way.
Yeah. I'm kind of interested to kind of think what would happen if you put another one of the bands as a focus. Like, you probably have a different complaint. Like,
maybe, because, like, I definitely felt a lot for the Gothic band. What were they called? Please help me.
The Gothic band? My dude, are you talking about Roselia?
Yeah, Roselia. I say Gothic just because it was the style of their dress, not necessarily because of their music. Their music was actually not, like, emo Gothic or anything like that. Absolutely not. But I felt like their band had an interesting dynamic in that, like, they very much had a leader, and not only did they have a leader, but it was like their leader was expecting perfectionism out of them. But I thought that the way that they addressed that, in which, like, their version of perfectionism is not you hit every fucking note. It's just like, I trust you to do the best. And I was like, okay, I'm okay with that. It was just the way that they were phrasing it. Maybe it was a translation. It always rubbed me slightly wrong, where I was just like, I'm a little nervous that, like, something's gonna happen, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be like, you pieces of shit, this terrible band, like, how dare you embarrass me in front of our fans. Like, I was very much expecting that moment from her, in which, like, this character's just like, perfectionism or nothing.
Roselia is one of those tough bands. Like, it's I think and honestly and we're probably going to talk about this, but I think, like, the anime definitely tries to give each band, like, its characterization of its basis story, but it's honestly sometimes just not enough.
It has a limited amount of time to do it, yeah.
And Roselia is definitely one of those bands that even when I started playing the game, I was like, yeah, they're cool, and I was like, but holy shit, they're, like, up to 11. Like, yeah. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Every single one of their members is up to 11 in a different way.
Yeah,
it feels like, at least.
And yeah, there's. I kind of started playing the game because I heard one of their songs and I started playing the game, and then I started reading their story and I was like, these people are kind of mean. Like, I don't really like them, but it was just because I didn't understand him. Is the thing. Like, I've come to learn that with characters in this franchise that I don't really hate them. I just have not yet understood them.
I would say that that's even true within the anime whenever you see, like, basically how they framed them, the main antagonist of the series, this Chutu, who's a producer. Mm-hmm. Like, even her, by the end of the series, I'm like, I don't hate you. I think you're a little bit of a punk, but I don't hate you. Like,
yeah, I kind of felt the same way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I think, honestly, I like the show a lot.
I like the show a lot. Yeah.
I feel like I don't exactly have a ton to say about it that hasn't been said about like other like idol adjacent franchises. I think it does an interesting way of addressing how these characters go through adversity and through like the power of friendship come to like love and understand and trust each other. I also think though that it's a really good advertisement for the game itself, and I think it largely works as a great supplement to it, because I'm kind of like you, Matt. Like I got a fair bit of like Afterglow and Roselia through the anime itself, but I really only came to fully understand these characters more when I was playing through the game and reading their stories and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So like
I feel like that's definitely fair with its like center focus on Poppin' Party.
Yeah, and as I said, I think that's one of the issues with putting the central focus on Poppin' Party, because they were the central focus of the first season.
It's the thing, though, is that, like, had they more episodes in the season, like if they had 24 for this instead of 12, I feel like they would dedicate about half of those to the other bands.
Mm-hmm.
And it would, because, like, the way that they were pacing everything out and the way that they were addressing the bands honestly seemed pretty good.
Yeah, like, yeah, I feel like if it was a longer series, I think it might actually have, I mean, it does have a season 3 coming out eventually, but
okay, awesome, good.
So I think maybe that might address some of those, but again, I don't know. But honestly, yeah, as Zach was saying, like, I mean, after the game, like, and I'm not going to sit here and advertise the game, because right. I mean, I could advertise the game for 6 hours.
I could shell this pretty hard after like maybe 2 weeks of this.
I have a weakness for rhythm games, and I know as soon as I download that game, I'm not coming back, and I'm gonna hate myself for it.
Well, it's such an interesting game too, because there's so much story. Like, it's not like if you played like Love Live or if you played any of those others, it's not like that where it's like, oh, there's a little bit of story and that's it.
Yeah, like, it's not even story. Sometimes you just get like a tiny bit of dialogue between a couple characters, and you're like, haha, that's funny, that's cute, and then like it goes to the next song.
Yeah. Like, but this has got like there's a whole fucking like, I think the main stories for the bands are like 20 or 25 like full dialogue scenes, and some of them get pretty freaking real. Like, awesome. Like. I'm not going to spoil any of them, but I mean, there's a couple that I was like, holy shit, this is a game? This is a mobile game? This is not even the main focus of this game, but holy shit. But maybe it is the main focus. Like, honestly, it could be, and I'd be like, well, I wouldn't know any different. Like,
I do think something that the anime does, where it may hint at that a little bit, that it does very differently from like Idolmaster or Love Live, is that in Love Live and Idolmaster you had competitive bands, and they were like treated as like, they're not evil people, but they're antagonists of the series. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this, it's like they love every single fucking band, and every band fucking loves each other. Like, you have such an amazing feeling of cooperation between these people, where it's like, we're not enemies, we're just bands, and we just like playing. That's what
they go to school with some of these people from these other bands. They're just like, hey, what's going on? Like,
they're genuine
what are you doing?
Friends with some of these people in other bands. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, like, you have this consistent group of individuals that feels like they grew up together, as far as these, like, bands starting off, not necessarily at the same time, but, like, relatively around the same time. And like, in a relatively, like, more centralized area. And so they're all, like, group bands that are just like, yeah, it's fucking cool playing together, we should do this more often. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is so different from a lot of the other like idol or idol adjacent shows that I've seen, and I just love it so much.
Isn't it so nice when people are just not fighting with each other all the time, and
the fact that you can have bands that are just like, oh shit, you guys are like genuinely depressed in your lives, here, we're gonna play a concert not even for fans, just for you. Like, that's so sweet.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and you have like, I did harp on them a little bit, but Roselia? Is that how you say that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's close, good enough.
Roselia,
it works.
Very much is one of those bands that like they expect perfection out of themselves, and so they push themselves to that point. But they also push other bands to that point, and not out of like in a negative fashion where it's like you're not even fucking good enough if you can't do that. They're like, we understand when there are mistakes that are made, but we want you to succeed. And like they're constantly pushing other people to do that as like let's raise you up, let's help you out. Like there's a lot of that in the show where you have these various dynamics between the bands as well as various dynamics between characters that were just very well done, that I didn't expect out of like an idol adjacent show, because I expected it all to be like, we'll fight and we'll go through it, but like as a group we'll win out. Like it's like, no, they're all just chill and just like really into it with each other.
Yeah, and I that's one of the things I really like about it, because you can just kind of like, at least when you're watching the anime or when I'm playing the mobile game, I'm just like, yeah, like I get to see these characters that, they obviously care about each other, and like it's just nice to watch, because I'm like, there's so much fighting and nonsense in the world as it is, and I'm just like, it's nice just to be like, this is a safe place.
Yeah, just like sit back and relax and watch some goof shit.
Here are my checks calculator. $30, and they're doing wonderful.
Yeah. I have $30 now. $30.
$30.
Yeah. Man, like I'm a little bit. The only thing I guess from a perspective of someone that played the mobile game and then watched the anime, that one thing I was just a little bit sad about was that, like, I kind of wish they would have delved a little bit more into the stories, the backstories of some of the bands, like the stories they go through in the game. But I understand they were trying to not make that a barrier,
right, or
a bore for the people that have obviously played the game. But they touched on some of the highlights, like with the pastel palettes in that episode. That was the flashback scene. Like that's a pretty like, I don't know if you where they talk about like their previous concert in the past. I don't know.
You might want to reference like which band, because they had a couple. I thought it was very, very interesting that like it was it's
the idol band.
Yeah. They had a thing where they had to fake it. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah,
and I was like, that was one of those things where I was like, oh shit, I'm actually kind of sad I didn't watch the first season, because I was like, ooh.
Well, that's not in the first season. That's only in the game.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah, see, that's why I said skip the first season, because you see the other 4 bands, they weren't in the first season.
Really?
Yeah, that was that was the main reason I said to skip the first season, because yeah, you wouldn't even know 20 of these characters anyway. You would have just gotten to know Popping Party and how they formed.
That's wild. I cannot believe. Why would they?
Well, see, and this is the problem. So this is. Right. I'm going to go on a little bit of backstory before I go into my other tangent that I was about to go on.
Yeah.
Basically, when Bang Dream first started, like, it came out as an anime and it was released alongside the mobile game, like a lot of mobile game franchises are. So they released the game, and then it gained popularity in the Japanese game, I mean. And then they put out the anime, and they're like, well, this will help promote it. It was within a month span of each other. And no one really cared about Bang Dream, because it's like, what the heck is a Bang Dream? Like, and then they you watch the anime, and like, there were so, like, I wouldn't say the anime's problematic, but like, there's a lot of, I would say there's production value problems. There's some really bad CG that were just not, because of technology, it just wasn't up to par in 2014, maybe even this came out, 2015, 2016.
Well, and I also think for the fans of the series, it may have been a disservice to focus on one band, but at the same time, I feel like they probably did that, because literally every other like idol adjacent show has done that, where they focus down on like one band. Yeah. So I feel like they were trying to like follow the formula. Yeah, and they didn't get exactly the greatest staff on the show.
And it became a problem where they released the show and everyone's like, wow, this is kind of a garbage show. And, like, the story isn't that bad if you go... I mean, I watched it and I was like... I mean, even I was like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I was like... And that was after playing the mobile game. I went back and watched the first season and said to myself, I should probably know, some backstory here. And I did, and I was like, man, that was a rough series to get through. Like, it was just rough around the edges all around. The story was decent, but everything else was not good. Anyway, that came to the point where after the anime aired, they tried to use that to promote the game, and the game didn't get promoted. So then it became... There was articles even at the time where basically what happened was that apparently, like, places in Japan had this merchandise that they thought they were going to sell, and they couldn't even get rid of it if they were giving it away. Like, they couldn't even get rid of it.
Oh my god.
Like, this game almost, like, went into the bucket somehow. And then when the English version was announced, like, I guess a little bit before that, apparently somewhere between that point, like, when they announced that they was getting a second anime at some point, like, and the English version was being promoted, like, people started getting back into it. And then, like, the surge of popularity started. And when the English version was announced, at least, so people started playing the Japanese version before the English game came out. And then that drove up the player base and, fueled the economy. And now this thing has become, like, a franchise monstrosity where we've got, Bang Dream's got 2 seasons, a movie, and a spin-off franchise, and it's got the mobile game that's making a bunch of money. Like,
wow.
Like,
yeah, I'm surprised.
I would like to point out
that
it
has this storied of a history.
Yeah.
I would like to point out, by the way, that on a whim, I was installing the game, and I noticed that it is currently the #1 top grossing game in the Android Google Play Store.
Yep.
Yeah. Like,
oh wow.
Like,
hot
it is,
damn.
It's a big thing. Like, and honestly, like, the community for it, like, is super grown. Like, it's kind of one of those games that you kind of, like, I literally picked up the game and I was like, I'm gonna just try it, see what it's like. And I did. Correction,
it's one of the top grossing games in the Google Play Store. Sorry.
Still though, yeah. Yeah. And I started playing the game and I was like, this is actually really good. Like, I just couldn't stop. Like, and it just became a trend. Like, I still see people on my feed that are like, well, I'm downloading the game, and then they play it, and then I'm seeing posts, months later that they're still playing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And, like, the community is pretty rampant for it. Like, it is pretty interesting.
Well, I think one of the great things about this is that it's very much like it is, at least as far as what I've seen with the anime, it's just a very, very positive game. Like, even among, like, idol adjacent shows, like I said, it was like, no one hates each other in this show. And that in itself is, like, fantastic for a community to grow, in which they're not like, oh, this girl is best girl. Oh, no, this girl is the most amazing. It's like, no, just, like, everyone's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm sure there's some waifu bullshit that goes with this.
Honestly, not seen any. Not
really.
I mean, people have, like, favorite characters, but they usually come like, I have favorite characters. I have, like, 4 of them. And then it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's very much a difference between other shows in which they try to, like, double down on, like, this is the character and you should love this character. And it's kind of the difference between, like, a game that is, like, PvP versus a game that's cooperative in nature, and which, like, just because of the way that it's fashioned, people can be a lot more positive towards each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not like there's no I've not seen a waifu war battle that you're speaking of. Like, they might exist, maybe, I don't know, I've not seen them. And I mean, I've viewed several Discord servers, I haven't seen any, so
not to the extent of, like, Love Live or something like that.
No, like, and I think that's probably because the player base, honestly, pretty different. I don't have any statistics to really prove this, but honestly, so I'm gonna go into this statistical rant that someone's gonna call me out on later, I'm sure.
According to my own analysis,
yeah. So take whatever I say, what I'm about to say, with a grain of salt. Someone was talking on Twitter today, actually, about how the fandom is kind of filled with a lot of women. Like it's kind of like an like I saw a poll a while back. It's like 70%.
Hot damn.
A lot of them queer women.
Oh, that's fucking badass.
But I mean, you can see why if you played the game, right? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, you even have particular characters in the show that are like obviously written for a female audience.
Yeah.
Where it was like you have the like prince type character, but is still very much feminine unto herself, and then you have like other characters that are very much like massively into another character, possibly not even in a like friendship way.
It's very, very possible. So that's I mean that's probably the appeal of it for some, and that's probably the reason why that doesn't really happen. That's my prediction. That's my big, like, you know, red threads, push pins. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, while a lot of these characters follow, like, an individual trope about how, like, a character archetype is, they are unique in their own existing way, as far as what I've seen so far in the show. They don't necessarily, at least in the show, they don't necessarily expand on that too much, but they at least make them unique. But a part of that, I think, is that, like, that is very different compared to, like, whenever I've, like, and I don't want to shit on everything you love, Matt, but whenever, like Idolmaster or Love Live does these things in which it's, like, everyone in wedding dresses, and it's, like, we're very much going to, like, make these appealing to a male audience. In comparison, so far, at least within the show, within the media that I've seen, I haven't necessarily seen them, which they're, like, trying to appeal to a particular audience.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to... in the show, yeah. They actually had a quote-unquote wedding event in the game at one point. Mm-hmm. And so it's just funny you bring that up. Yeah, where they kind of... There's two characters. They basically, like, get pulled onto the side of the street, and they're like, "Hey, we need an advertisement for wedding dresses. You wanna pretend you're getting married, and we'll take some pictures?" Mm-hmm. And the characters are just like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And I mean, it was honestly, like, yeah, it was very different. You could tell the whole thing was just very differently done, because there were.
Was it like tuxes for, like, one person had tux and another person had gown?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That is very different from, like, all of these women, all gowns, and all in a feminine way.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's still stuff like that, but as I said, it's just very different than any of those other franchises. And
it's handled a little bit differently.
Yeah.
That's at least how it was striking me, and that's just, like, my own personal opinion. That doesn't mean that's actually how it is factually. So.
Yeah, I mean...
But that's just how it was striking me as I was going through the show. I was like, it feels like they're kind of making these characters not just, like, for a male audience, but just for anybody.
They're not, as you said, I kind of feel like they might be, like, as you said, they have the tropes, but yeah, I would say every single one of them is just not, like, you think they're a trope, but they're, like, they're their own person.
I think one of the biggest examples of that is that, I can't remember her name, but from Roselia, the girl that, like, constantly is, like, Chunbyo, in which she's like, ha ha ha, the darkness in my heart screams for this. But then, like, another member of the band would be like, hey, great. Yeah, like, hey, Akko, we're going. And she'll be like, okay, see you later, guys. Like, she knows that it's an act, and she's just having fun with it. Like, rather than somebody who, like, truly believes, like, the world is darkness or something like that. It flipped the script a little bit on that archetype, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, we kind of devolved into talking about the game a little bit, but
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. But I mean, honestly, though, yeah, like, Bang Dream is probably the biggest franchise right now. Like, honestly, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, like, there's a new Love Live coming out eventually, but I haven't seen anybody talk about it. It's all Bang Dream.
Wow.
Like, it's like, there's apparently a huge fandom shift at some point as well.
Yeah, that's huge.
Like, this thing is going to take over the world, guys.
Just like the Chew 2. We haven't addressed it yet, and I feel like it's something important that we should bring up because it is very pertinent to the way that the second season was handled. The CGI for the show. 3D models for everything.
Oh yeah, I guess that's something we should talk about. I kind of forgot.
It should be. And honestly, that in itself is how I think about it. The 3D models for the show are done in such a way that, like, after a certain point, I don't even think about it.
Yeah. Like honestly, when you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, but I honestly, when you're watching the show, it's like, I don't think of it as CG. Like,
I mean, it's like highly apparent too, because if somebody walked into the room and saw, like, oh my gosh, those Mickey D fries that they're eating are like horribly CGI, and you're like, yeah, but like it fits the art style, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think that honestly that is a benefit to this show, because in a lot of ways they use that CGI to do a lot of more interesting tricks that they would have been harder for them. For instance, a lot of the times I noticed, I'm not necessarily a guitar player myself, but at least like strumming up and down the frets, it seemed like they were very much hitting the notes that they should be hitting, as well as whenever I was looking at the people playing piano, which I do know, it seemed like they were very much hitting the notes on the piano. And they can get away with that a lot easier because they have 3D models in which they can be like, bup, 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 compared to like 2D animation. That takes a lot more in order to animate that.
Right.
And I think like that was definitely to their benefit for a lot of this. And the fact that they were like, we're not just going to do that for the song sequence, we're going to do that for the whole show. They like leaned into that really hard, and it just looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's going to be your purists that are going to be like, oh, the CG, it's bad.
Right.
Like, but I mean, that's just something people are going to have to eventually get over.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I think that it was actually... It's kind of funny, but you know how like whenever like Xbox and PS3 games like got to the point in which it's like, oh, my character got in water and now they look wet, and it's like, oh, that's so cool, that's never been done before. That actually happened multiple times, like whenever they would have like rain suddenly showing that, like, you know, they get rained out of an event, and so they have to like wait until the rain passes over or whatever, and like the characters actually looked wet, like actually looked like, oh yeah, they just came out from the rain. I was like, oh shit. Because there have been so many shows in which like they are performing in the rain and they still look spotless, they still look amazing, and I'm like, that is just not,
that's not how that works.
Yeah. It takes me out of the moment, because I'm like, the fact that you look completely dry right now, and it's only after you get done that even then we get like, oh, I'm breathing hard and I have sweat because we just got done with the song, compared to, yeah, we're in the middle of the fucking performance and we're sweating like crazy. Like, that was way better in this show, just because they can use 3D models for that, so it becomes a little bit easier to animate in comparison. And they used that to great effect.
Yeah, it's definitely done well. So, yeah. Props to them.
Absolutely, props to them.
From ashes to phoenix. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, when you detailed the history for the show, it genuinely surprised me. I was like, holy shit! Like, to do such a 180.
Yeah, like that. It's honestly a miracle that I don't even know like the details of the intermittent part there, but whatever happened, and it was big. So,
and I love that it did happen, because now we have a great anime to watch that's just genuinely fun. But then on top of that, like for the people that are fans of the game, you just have a good game to play.
Yeah. Also, I'm gonna shield this too. There is a short series, chibi short series, on YouTube. 26 episodes are like 3 minutes each. It's more stupidity. It's great.
Oh, you've shown me a couple of those, and while I didn't know any of the characters because this was well before I watched the anime, I still enjoyed it just because it was silly and fun.
It is. It's so good.
Yeah, gosh dang, I surprisingly enjoyed Bang Dream, especially after I had that like weird moment where I was just like trying to figure things out for the first 3 episodes. So like episode 4 onwards, I was like, oh no, though. This is
just straight up hooked.
This is straight up exactly what I want.
Episode 4 is a good selling point.
I think so, because I think while I did have my issues with like this drama doesn't seem very grounded, but then I kept thinking to myself in the back of my head, I was like, but they did a fucking Iron Man skit. Like nothing about this is grounded.
Yeah.
Right, like does it need to be?
Does it need to be?
Yeah.
And honestly, at that point I was like, yeah, no, I have to agree with you, Kyle. Yeah, that's right, Kyle. It's just like, yeah, it's just really, it's over the top in the best of ways.
Well, we're going to be honest too. There's absolutely nothing grounded about Hello Happy World. Nothing. 0%.
I would watch an entire 26 episode series on Hello Happy World.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Because it would be crazier than like watching fucking like the Tatami Galaxy. Like it would be bonkers.
I just love the fact that Kokoro's just like, yeah, we're gonna perform. We're gonna fly, by the way.
I will say one thing that irked me as somebody who is a bit of a musician. It bothered me so much that you have these people that are like, good gosh, like getting towards like a decade younger than me that have like tens of thousands of dollars of equipment in their bedroom. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like that bothered me so much that you have like a girl that has like triple monitors, a huge decked out PC specifically for composing music, and like a grand piano that's worth at least $5,000. And yeah, that's just in their bedroom. We have no idea what the rest of their house looks like. It's like, oh my gosh. Especially when it started getting towards the like, I'm the producer, and she very obviously had like millions of dollars because she has this grand suite on the top of a hotel.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, I appreciated more whenever you had like Pop and Party that were just like, oh yeah, my granddad had a whole bunch of music stuff and I just kind of borrowed it and I got my love of it from him. And it's like, that was way more grounded than like, I have billions of dollars and I'm going to make a record. But at the same time, I feel like that was also a part of the charm of the series, is just like how ridiculous it was.
Yeah.
Even in the smaller details.
I mean, it's basically, at this point, it's basically canon that Kokoro has, we don't know how much money, but she's got a lot.
Yeah.
So, it's
it's good.
It's good. It's just good.
It's just really good.
It just works.
It just works. Yeah. TM.
And Bang Dream second season. It just works. Yeah.
Yeah.
A good one. I really feel shitty because there's a million other shows that we should talk about. Gosh, I need to catch up on Totoro, speaking of which. But those were the ones that we watched. Were there any other things that you could think of that you wanted to make a quick mention of?
I wish I watched Mob Psycho 100 season 2, but
I feel like the worst piece of shit because I haven't even gone through the first season of that show. I liked it. I really, really liked it.
Apparently the second season's even better.
Oh shit,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's the number one. It's actually, I think, in the top 10 of Mao now.
Oh damn!
Like it's one of the. I think it's the only show this season that broke the 9 barrier.
Well, why the fuck was I wasting my time with Bermuda Triangle?
Yeah, I wish I had watched that. Dororo is kick-ass.
Oh, it's so good.
I need to catch up.
I wish I had watched My Roommate is a Cat. I've heard a lot of surprisingly good things about it.
Was that this season? I thought it was previous season.
It was this season.
It's this season.
Just finished.
my roommate asked me about that because it was very much something.
Your roommate, they're not a cat, right?
Yes. But also I have another roommate that's not, and she recommended it because it's like right up her alley. So I was gonna sit down and watch that actually just really soon here, because I have a weakness for animals.
Oh, and I don't regret a single moment of me not watching all of Wise, because fuck that. I already did Handshakers, and getting through 2 episodes of Wise, I was like, you know what? I actually love myself, and I'm not going to do this to me. So fuck this,
Darn.
I think.
It's a part of, like, self-love, but also a mixture of, I've done my time. I don't need to do this again.
It's very... I might watch it at some point just to really get a good sense of the insanity of it, but I'm not interested in doing that to myself anytime soon.
Let me know, Zach. We can have a party and get drunk.
Oh, you know what? That sounds fucking great. We might do that.
Good
actually.
shit.
I'll join you two on it, but I won't like it. But then I also probably won't care after a certain point. Depends on how many beers I have.
Yeah. We'll do something over the summer.
Okay.
We'll do it.
All right.
But I guess that's really it, because we covered all the things we wanted to cover.
Yeah, we covered everything we wanted to cover, and honestly, this has gone on for a long time.
But this is a good season, and it kind of deserved it, because there's a lot of good shit.
Like, unfortunately, it's just there's so many good shows. I want to talk about them all, but we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll catch everybody next time. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. As always, you can find all our podcast articles, videos, etc. at thebacklogers.com. Our intro-outro song is The Bear by Shell in the Pit, who you can find on Spotify as well as Bandcamp. And we'd love to hear from y'all either in the comments on our site or any feedback you want to leave us on whatever podcast platform you like, iTunes, Soundcloud, or write us a sweet rock anthem and use it to win the battle of the cute girl bands. And as always, we're on Twitter at _Backloggers. So come hang with us. See you later.